No, you can't make me go back there. I won't let you take me. Too much pain. Too many dead. Can't get the blood out of my eyes. My mouth.
Fans of the Diablo series are already intimately familiar with Tristram's doomed townsfolk. A ragged crew of survivors quarantined by Hell's forces, only allowed to survive by the Lord of Terror for a time. But what happened after the events of Diablo 1, when the prime evil came to collect? Well, in this video we'll be cataloguing every villager's story, interactions and relationships with each other and the hero before building to their eventual grim fate. So sit back and relax as much as you can as we explore the tragic downfall of Tristram's villagers. Fans of the Diablo series are already intimately familiar with the tragedy that befell the townsfolk of Tristram.
Your death will be avenged.
With the town's subsequent destruction at the hands of the fallen warrior, a new vessel for the Lord of Terror himself. And although we learned the various grisly fates of the inhabitants of Tristram, an ongoing mystery remains. Why was there originally a fully voiced character named Tremaine the Priest, who, despite having a secret yet vital role in town, and his very own quest, plus hints to his remains in Diablo 2, was he ultimately removed? In today's video, we will explore these questions and more in the untold truth of the tragic rise and fall of the cut character Tremaine the Priest from Diablo 1. Unfortunately, when approaching the restored Tremaine to learn more about the absentee priest thanks to the Beelzebub mod, his only dialogue option present is a single, somber greeting.
All I can do now is pray for us all.
Although later in the video, we will learn more about Tremaine's own dedicated cut quest, which is thankfully fully voiced. There is a reason why this enigmatic priest's dialogue is actually so sparse. Tremaine was reported to originally appear late in-game, only when the player had emerged from the caves level, to be precise, just when the Hellmouth in town opened. But why, you ask? Well, unsurprisingly, to understand what exactly Tremaine was doing in Tristram during Diablo's occupation, or more accurately, outside of Tristram for the bulk of the game, we needn't guess at all, but instead can piece together his purpose and placement thanks to the various recorded dialogue from villagers that never made it into the final game concerning the wayward priest. Thanks to Adria the witch, we learn.
Faith is absolute belief in the unseen. The priest Tremaine is from a holy order long asleep in this land. He keeps a promise and a charge issued ages ago and sustains a union with realms that even my vision cannot reach. He knows much, but not as much as he believes.
We later discover that Tremaine's order was that of the Zakarum faith, the exact same order that was corrupted by Mephisto back in Kurast, that compelled the Archbishop Lazarus to have King Leoric and his subjects relocate to Diablo's Soulstone resting place, much to the chagrin of Farnham.
I haven't ever seen a priest around there. If I did, I'd kick him right in the... Can't even keep a church free of those hell-spawned bastards. What good are they, huh? Those holy men. Liars. Liars!
So, does that mean Tremaine's personal faith is compromised, like his brethren Lazarus? Well, unlike the rest of the townsfolk, Tremaine does not seem to be bound to Tristram whatsoever, which explains his reported absence in-game. As the various townsfolk comment,
The priest Tremaine is a bit of a mystery. He certainly never stays here, and he often comes and goes to many of the nearby towns.
Yeah, Tremaine. He gets around, doesn't he? Or haven't you heard? My friends in some of the other towns say that he passes through, picking up a few books here, a pinch of backclaw there. Never seems to have the problems most do getting in and out of Tristram, that's for sure.
I really don't know much about the priest Tremaine. He never visits the tavern, preferring to keep to the company of Pepin and Cain. Perhaps it is because they too have more scholarly pursuits.
The priest, Tremaine? Ah, he's a solitary fellow who has no time for most of us. He seems to prefer the company of Pepin or Cain. And that's fine by me. I respect his passion and his commitment to his order, but I've no time for his prattling.
Indeed, if we speak to Pepin the healer, he sings His Holiness's praise like a bird.
His Holiness is a wondrous man of great knowledge and understanding. He has shown me many cures for rare and deadly diseases. He brings me books and reagents for my work whenever he can, but I fear that he may someday take on some task that is too great even for him.
But what task could Tremaine possibly take on that would be too great? And is Pepin's judgment compromised as well, seeing as he used to be a priest underneath Lazarus? Now, we will circle back to Tremaine's personal relationship with Lazarus, as it plays a vital role in his backstory and motivations. But first, if we are to know Tremaine's true alignment, the more pressing question which Cain poses being, why is he alone allowed to travel to Tristram unmolested?
Tremaine is an occasional visitor to our town and seems to have little problem coming and going. It is strange how at times anyone who tries to leave Tristram is hunted down and slain by the cloaked riders, and at other times it is a simple matter to leave. I think it is that uncertain fear that keeps some of us here, but we are glad for Tremaine's bravery and luck in keeping some contact with the rest of the kingdom.
The true reason why some villagers were bound to be kept hostage in town was as Cain inadvertently divined due to fear, or more accurately, terror itself, which I covered in an entire video, but for now, as stated in an abridged section of the Diablo 1 manual, and read in my best warrior impression. Not long after Leoric took possession of Canderous, a power long asleep awakened within the dark recesses beneath the monastery. Sensing that freedom was within his grasp, Diablo entered the nightmares of the archbishop and lured him into the dark, subterranean labyrinth. In his terror, Lazarus raced through the abandoned hallways until he at last came to the chamber of the burning soul stone. No longer in command of his body or spirit, he raised the stone above his head and uttered words long forgotten in the realm of mortals. His will destroyed, Lazarus shattered the soul stone upon the ground. Diablo once again came into the world of man. Although he was released from his imprisonment within the Soul Stone, the Lord of Terror was still greatly weakened from his long sleep and required an anchor to the world. Once he had found a mortal form to wear, which eventually was the young Prince Albrecht, he could begin to reclaim his vastly depleted power. Travelers on the roads surrounding Tristram were accosted by cloaked riders that seemed to now constantly roam the deserted countryside. Many villagers fled Tristram, making their way to other towns or kingdoms, fearing some unnamed evil that seemed to wait in the shadows all around them. Those few who chose to remain seldom ventured out at night and never tread foot upon the grounds of the cursed monastery. Whispered rumors of poor, innocent people being abducted in the night by wicked, nightmarish creatures filled the halls of the local inn, with no king, no law, and no army left to defend them. Many of the townsfolk began to fear an attack from the things that now dwelt beneath their town. The Archbishop Lazarus, frayed and disheveled, returned from his absence and assured the townsfolk that he too had been ravaged by the growing evil of the monastery. Their desperate need for reassurance clouding their good judgment, Lazarus whipped the townspeople into a frenzied mob, reminding them that Prince Albrecht was still unaccounted for. He persuaded many of the men to follow him into the depths of the monastery to search for the boy. They armed themselves with shovels, picks, and scythes, and so prepared, they boldly followed the treacherous archbishop straight into the fiery maw of hell itself. The few who survived the horrible fate that awaited them returned to Tristram and recounted what they could of their ordeal. Their wounds were terrible, and even the skills of the healer could not save some of them. As the stories of demons and devils spread, a stifling, primal terror began to consume the hearts of the town's inhabitants. It was a terror that none of them had ever known. Deep beneath the foundations of the ruined monastery, Diablo gorged himself upon the fears of the mortals above him. He slowly sank back into the welcoming shadows and began to harness his depleted power. He smiled to himself in the sheltering darkness, for he knew that the time of his final victory was fast approaching. Diablo didn't just use dark emotions to ensnare the unsuspecting citizens paralyzed by fear, as we know why the other townsfolk were not allowed to leave Tristram. Like Sauron's enigmatic Nazgul, Diablo employed enforcers unseen in-game called the Dark/Cloaked Riders, who hunt down unwanted interlopers that visited Tristram, as first mentioned in the game's manual and Ogden's opening speech.
Thank goodness you returned. Much has changed since you lived here, my friend. All was peaceful until the Dark Riders came and destroyed our village. Many were cut down where they stood, and those who took up arms were slain or dragged away to become slaves, or worse.
Conversely, Wirt's ability to trade would prove that Dark Riders didn't mindlessly attack all visitors.
In case you haven't noticed, I don't buy anything from Tristram. I am an importer of quality goods. If you want to peddle your junk, you'll have to see Griswald, Pepin, or that witch Adria. I'm sure they'll snap up whatever you can bring them.
So why wasn't a priest of all people who, superficially, seemed to be an ardent defender of the light, hunted down and exterminated on sight like a dog by the marauding demons in charge of Tristram's unholy border patrol? The reason Tremaine seemed to survive despite his religious affiliation is admittedly somewhat theoretical. However, as we learn more of his backstory, it becomes more apparent he was arguably perhaps the greatest threat to Diablo's return. But how? Although Diablo 1's timeline is pretty shaky, we do know the following for certain. The countryside of Tristram was overrun with demons roughly 4 years earlier, as stated by Cain.
Ogden has owned and run the Rising Sun Inn and Tavern for almost 4 years now. He purchased it just a few short months before everything here went to hell.
The demons retreated mostly to the church and created a cursed quarantine of Tristram's town, allowing the weakened Diablo to recuperate and to feed on the terror of the inhabitants, regaining his strength in his new host, Prince Albrecht, so he could later free his brothers. Furthermore, the events of Diablo 1 take place not too long after Albrecht was dragged into the labyrinth thanks to the treachery of the Archbishop Lazarus.
Abandon your foolish quest. All that awaits you is the wrath of my master. You are too late to save the child. Now you will join him.
I was there when Lazarus led us into the labyrinth. He spoke of holy retribution. But when we started fighting those hellspawn, he did not so much as lift his mace against them. He just ran deeper into the dim, endless chambers that were filled with the servants of darkness.
And as a puppet of Diablo, Lazarus undoubtedly downplayed the danger to his fellow Zacharoon brother-in-arms. Congruently, originally Tremaine had two, not one, but two conflicting quests, and we will soon explore why they were conflicting, but more pressing. It was originally Tremaine who activated the Lazarus quest, as no doubt it was a stinging betrayal for the priest, realizing that the Archbishop was but a pawn for Diablo under his nose the entire time. And although during the final release, it was Cain who would bequeath the player with the infamous Lazarus quest, originally it was Tremaine saying,
I seek a champion to undertake a serious duty, and the people of this town speak well of your courage and skill. The Archbishop Lazarus, once King Leoric's most trusted advisor and a member of our order, has taken the path of evil. Not long ago, Lazarus led a party of simple townsfolk into the labyrinth to find the king's missing son, Albrecht. Only a few of them escaped with their lives. Curse me for a fool! I should have suspected his veiled treachery then, for I have learned that it was Lazarus himself who kidnapped Leoric's son and has since hidden him within the labyrinth. I still don't understand why the Archbishop has turned to the darkness, or what his interest is in Albrecht. Unless he means to sacrifice him at the full moon. That must be what he has planned. The survivors of his rescue party say that Lazarus was last seen in the deepest bowels of the labyrinth, some 16 levels beneath the cathedral. You must hurry and save the prince from the sacrificial blade of this demented fiend.
In fact, like the quest Map of the Stars, which would have you kill Diablo in a certain time frame, or doom the town as he regained full power, which was later abandoned as having a timer made things difficult for players.
I am sure that you tried your best, but I fear that even your strength and will may not be enough. Diablo is now at the height of his earthly power.
If we returned early to Tremaine, he would urge us to continue with our quest.
Why do you delay? Time is of the essence. The prince and the people of this kingdom are counting on you.
Perhaps more telling, there was indeed a failure return speech that seems to indicate the original Lazarus quest had a fail state if the boy you found was sacrificed and not saved, as Tremaine would state.
This is terrible. Lazarus will surely burn in hell for his horrific deed. Although the boy that you describe may not be our prince, I believe that Albrecht may yet be in danger. Whatever vile power lies beneath the ground has assuredly secured its foothold in our world. All I can do now is pray for us all.
If we successfully fell the bastard Archbishop Betrayer,
Madness ends here, betrayer.
I believe having Tremaine deliver this line versus Cain was much more fitting.
So, Lazarus has paid the price for his betrayal, and justice is served. For your services this day, I bestow this mace unto you. Its name is Lightforge, and it is the holiest of our order's artifacts. As I am the last of this order, I entrust it to you. May the light guide you.
With Tremaine's final blessing and Lazarus's earlier mentioned mace, Lightforge, the hero would presumably be sent off to the final quest to slay the Lord of Terror. So the two questions to tackle from here are, why was the quest conflicting with an earlier quest even before Tremaine was cut from the final game? And what about the priest? Would Lazarus, or even perhaps Diablo, fear? Well, as players are intimately aware, the Archbishop Lazarus was the penultimate quest in Diablo 1. The final release of the game also still features a random grouping of quests that only a certain amount can be activated per playthrough. For example, if you started a new game of Diablo and saw that the well was poisoned, then you would get the poisoned water supply, but not the Skeleton King quest. Conversely, if you saw that the water was blue, that meant that you would receive the Skeleton King mission. However, I have to note the Beelzebub mod that I play doesn't have that problem. It just allows you to do every quest on every run, which is not only greatly appreciated, but also why my game looks different possibly to yours, and it is linked in the description below. I highly recommend it. So back to the cluster of randomized quests, it was believed that the Archbishop Lazarus quest itself was either originally not intended to be able to be accessed in every playthrough, or possibly Cain would take over the absentee Tremaine's role. And the reason was that Tremaine would not always be present at that time. And now we're going deeper into the rabbit hole, asking why, unlike any other townsfolk present, was Tremaine absent by the time Diablo was slain? Unfortunately, it was Pepin who foreshadowed earlier.
His Holiness is a wondrous man of great knowledge and understanding, but I fear that he may someday take on some task that is too great even for him.
Circling back to the priest's arrival, when Tremaine first appears after the player exits the cave due to his unique and dedicated quest called Fleshdoom, it's there we learn more about the priest's backstory, his impressive abilities, and why he was hated by demonic entities. As we first re-enter the town approaching Tremaine, he says,
I have had a most disturbing experience that I must share with you, my friend. Earlier today, I was called upon to help one of the men that escaped from the labyrinth. He was deranged, violent, and kept lashing out at all of those who tried to calm him. I suspected that he was possessed by some sort of demonic entity, and so began to drive the evil from within him. After many hours, I was able to exorcise a demon who called himself Fleshdoom, but the hellion fled into the labyrinth. You may think that I am mad, but after speaking with the man and battling with Fleshdoom, I believe that the labyrinth has somehow become a gateway to the underworld. As you descend deeper, you may find yourself upon the doorstep of hell itself. Finally, the man who was possessed retained memories of an ancient demon blade named Shadow Fang. If you find the demon Fleshdoom, beware this foul sword. While I fear the dangers below grow even greater, you must find Fleshdoom and slay him. Bring the sword to me and I can destroy it, but do not wield it, for its power can corrupt absolutely.
Now, there is a lot to unpack here, but for expediency's sake, I'm going to go with the Cliff Notes as I uncovered this entire quest of Tremaine's battle with the demon Fleshdoom, which will be linked at the end of the video. But the story beats are as such. A demon named Fleshdoom was exorcised by Tremaine, a rather unique ability which I will circle back to. But the more pressing issues are, there was a powerful blade created at the Hellforge called Shadow Fang. What's interesting is that was the exact blade that Iswal attempted to stop from being created before being waylaid by demons, and this moment is of course immortalized in the game's manual, showing the first angel in the series and with pre-Lightwings thanks to Chris Metzen's artistry. With an exorcised demon back in hell, we hunt down Fleshdoom and engage in a bloody battle before returning to Tremaine.
Fleshdoom's demise is a great good to the world, yet Shadow Fang remains. It must be found and destroyed. Do not attempt to use the demon blade, champion. It will corrupt and madden any mortal who wields it. I alone can end its dark evil.
Discovering the whereabouts of the hellish blade, we find we cannot even wield it.
I can see why they fear this weapon.
And as such, return the cursed blade to Tremaine to dire consequences.
Light be praised! You found the cursed demon blade. Only its destruction can ensure the safety of us all. Wait, what treachery is this? Oh, it burns! Hellfire consuming me! You must take this to the Hellforge and cast it in before... No!
So this would be one possible grisly fate for Tremaine, tricked into going toe-to-toe with a powerful demon, unaware all the while Hell was exacting their revenge for his meddling.
This blade must be destroyed.
But after all we have seen, why didn't Diablo's minions or the Dark Riders take care of the Holy Man earlier? Well, I believe it may have to do with his unique ability. As previously stated, Tremaine had the ability to perform exorcisms.
I was asked to assist in the exorcism. My skills were able to ease the poor man's suffering as Tremaine drove the demon from his body. While I was treating him for an exceptionally high fever, he spoke of a place of searing heat. The tortured fellow cried out about hell and falling into a pit of flame. I could not make any sense of it, and thankfully he soon recovered.
I heard that the priest Tremaine was going to perform an exorcism, but I didn't go. I don't see why we all have to spend every moment captive to what is lurking underneath our town. I know that many have died at the hands of these monsters, but we need to try to go on. I know that you have come here to free Tristram from the clutches of darkness, and I hope that one day we can live in peace again.
I saw the exorcism. It was incredible how Tremaine drove the evil spirit from that man's racked and tortured body. I pray that something that horrific never happens to anyone here ever again.
In fact, the Zacharoon faith closely followed Christianity, not just in aesthetic, but also a priest's ability to exorcise demons, which would be a powerful deterrent for the forces of hell. Consider the following. 4 years ago, the countryside was overrun, but the town entered more of a terrible state of homogeny, or a new normal. With a handful of citizens left, it was Tremaine alone who could travel between towns. Plus, he was only slated to appear just as the hero would enter the final Hellmouth, which only opened when Diablo, who was weakened in Ulbrich's body after wrestling with Leoric's spirit, had gorged himself on the town's terror, so much so that he could rip the fabric of reality and create an outpost of hell itself as his return drew near with the aligning of stars. And so it's not a stretch to think that Lazarus, a fellow priest of the Order, now corrupted by the Lord of Terror, would have strict instructions to make Tremaine believe that things were bad but not dire, so he would not bring down the full force of the Zakharum upon a vulnerable Diablo. No doubt Diablo probably believed at this point he was safe from the pitiful priest's powers of exorcism. Although formidable to lesser demons, it was, as Adria hinted, perhaps Tremaine's faith in his abilities was overestimated.
Faith is absolute belief in the unseen. The priest Tremaine is from a holy order long asleep in this land. He keeps a promise and a charge issued ages ago and sustains a union with realms that even my vision cannot reach. He knows much, but not as much as he believes.
Tremaine's story, however, doesn't exactly end there. Although there are no further direct references to the priest in subsequent titles, when entering the town of Tristram, which was overrun in Diablo 2, we find most of the townsfolk accounted for, and indeed there is a body where Tremaine would have stood as perhaps a wry reference to the ultimately cut priest. But more sinister, perhaps, is a certain blade, Shadow Fang, which the warrior in Diablo 1 was tasked with destroying on the Hellforge, yet it makes its own appearance in Diablo 2. It seems the labors of one priest, who was a stalwart defender of the light until the end, was but another pawn or victim of Diablo's machinations, proving, like the rest of the poor townsfolk of Tristram, that time is no issue when you draw the ire of hell itself.
The priest Tremaine is a holy man from an ancient order. Their dealings with the evil forces at work are well respected and well documented. I too have heard legends that speak of the cursed demon blade called Shadow Fang. It is said to consume the tortured souls of its victims. These souls are trapped within its ebon blade and augment its unholy power. I have also read of a great hell forge where even the mightiest weapon could be created or destroyed. Tread carefully when dealing with Shadow Fang and its master, lest you be drawn into the sword as well.
Farnham the Drunk is a character in Diablo 1 who's encountered when first entering the town of Tristram from the south, east of an empty building below the town square, where we find a disheveled man sitting cross-legged in his grotty, tattered clothes, sporting a long greying beard and hair, and nursing his jug of ale. When approached, he mutters,
"Can't a fellow drink in peace?"
Funnily enough, when I was younger, I couldn't make out the words he said and mistakenly thought it was, "Can I have a foul drunken geese?" Which admittedly makes less sense. Especially when we learn why the town drunk wants to drown his sorrows in peace, away from everybody else. See, Farnham doesn't technically provide any kind of service or quest to the player character in the vanilla game. He appears at first to be little more than comic relief, but as the game progresses, his character is revealed to have a darker, more tragic nature. Though it should be noted, sometimes his apparently incoherent ramblings may in fact provide players with some insight into what they may encounter in the labyrinth, such as,
"No one ever listens to me."
Somewhere, I ain't too sure, but somewhere under the church, there's a whole pile of gold. Gleaming, shining, just waiting for someone to get it.
and the less helpful and more comical dialogue mentioned.
I want to tell you something, because I know all about this stuff. It's my specialty. This here is the best. The best.
That other ale ain't no good since those stupid dogs
To expand on why Farnham is at face value a broken alcoholic, we shall speak to his fellow villagers to learn of his history through general gossip and quest dialogue, and to contextualise the origin of his all-consuming mental anguish. Starting with Farnham's thoughts on the man who supplies him his favourite thing in the world, ale.
Ogden is the best man in town. I don't think his wife likes me much, but as long as she keeps tapping kegs, I'll like her just fine. Seems like I've been spending more time with Ogden than most, but he's so good to me.
The innkeeper Ogden then explains it's pity that keeps him serving the inebriated patron.
Farnham spends far too much time here drowning his sorrows in cheap ale. I would make him leave, but he did suffer so during his time in the labyrinth.
As we know, the labyrinth is overrun by demons below the nearby cathedral that has created the taint choking out Tristram for the last 4 years. But what was Farnham's experience that caused such sympathy from Ogden? Now, apparently not all of the town's inhabitants are quite as sympathetic to his plight, such as Jillian, Ogden's barmaid, who will comment curtly.
Good day. How may I serve you? Farnham is a drunkard who fills his belly with ale and everyone else's ears with nonsense. I know that both Pepin and Ogden feel sympathy for him, but I get so frustrated watching him slip farther and farther into a befuddled stupor every night.
A sentiment not shared by Farnham, who seems oblivious to Jillian's frustrations, so long as the ale keeps coming.
The gal who brings the drinks? Oh, yeah. What a pretty lady. So nice, too.
As mentioned by Jillian, another man to strongly feel sympathy for Farnham is the local healer, Pepin, who comments,
What ails you, my friend? Even my skills have been unable to fully heal Farnham. Oh, I have been able to mend his body, but his mind and spirit are beyond anything I can do.
So, whatever traumatic experiences Farnham underwent in that labyrinth broke his mind and spirit versus his body. A trauma we shall soon experience firsthand, unfortunately. When first talking about Pepin, Farnham would then praise the healer's willingness to help and absent-mindedly confirm something interesting, that he himself was once a hero of sorts.
I like Pepin. He really tries, you know. Listen here, you should make sure you get to know him. Good fellow like that with people always wanting help. Hey, I guess that'd be kind of like you, hero? I was a hero too, you know.
A stark reminder and cautionary tale that those who take the dark host that has overrun the cathedral lightly may suffer a similar fate. It's during the remainder of the townfolk's dialogue do we learn how could this broken shell of a man, barely able to carry the weight of his own jug of ale, once have been a self-proclaimed hero. When first speaking to Farnham of the peg-legged Wirt, who lost his leg after being abducted by the impish demons that haunt the labyrinth below.
Wirt is a kid with more problems than even me, and I know all about problems. Listen here, that kid's got a sweet deal. He's been there, you know, lost a leg, gotta walk around on a piece of wood. So sad, so sad.
Although Wirt is admittedly wary of the validity of many of Farnham's drunken musings.
Over here. Don't trust everything the drunk says. Too many ales have fogged his vision and his good sense.
He speaks of almost a kinship to the town drunk due to their brush with the Hellspawn.
Farnham, now there is a man with serious problems, and I know all about how serious problems can be. He trusted too much in the integrity of one man, and Lazarus led him into the very jaws of death. Oh, I know what it's like down there, so don't even start telling me about your plans to destroy the evil that dwells in that labyrinth. Just watch your legs.
It's when next speaking to Farnham about the blacksmith Griswald, do we get a glimpse of the drunkard's feelings on this Lazarus.
Griswald? Good old Griswald. I love him like a brother. We fought together, you know, back when we... Lazarus!
Griswold himself then explains Lazarus's betrayal, and Farnham also being an unlikely hero.
Well, what can I do for you? I was with Farnham that night that Lazarus led us into the labyrinth. I never saw the Archbishop again, and I may not have survived if Farnham was not at my side. I fear that the attack left his soul as crippled as, well, another did my leg. I cannot fight this battle for him now. But what if I could?
So Farnham saved Griswald, and this Lazarus was responsible for the townsfolk's massacre. Although when asked about Adria the witch living on the outskirts of town, Farnham doesn't have much to say.
Why don't that old crone do something for a change? Sure, she's got stuff. But you listen to me. She's unnatural. I ain't never seen her eat or drink, and you can't trust somebody who doesn't drink at least a little.
Adria herself, though, divines Farnham's fate.
I sense a soul in search of answers. The higher you place your faith in one man, the farther it has to fall. Farnham has lost his soul, but not to any demon. It was lost when he saw his fellow townspeople betrayed by the Archbishop Lazarus. He has knowledge to be gleaned, but you must separate fact from fantasy.
So Farnham's psyche remains fractured due to Lazarus's betrayal, but he still has a glimmer of perception that cannot be ignored, as he seems to see the true nature of the scholar Decard Cain, stating,
Cain isn't what he says he is. Sure, he talks a good story. Some of them are real scary or funny. But I think he knows more than he knows.
Similar to Adria, the knowing Cain then further shares what happened in the cathedral.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen. Poor Farnham. He is a disquieting reminder of the doomed assembly that entered into the cathedral with Lazarus on that dark day. He escaped with his life, but his courage and much of his sanity were left in some dark pit. He finds comfort only at the bottom of his tankard nowadays, but there are occasional bits of truth buried within his constant ramblings.
Although we've learned that this Archbishop Lazarus, a holy man, betrayed the townsfolk of Tristram, we don't actually learn what happened until later, when heading to the cathedral, where we find a wounded townsman at its entrance who, with his last breath, beseeches.
Please, listen to me. The Archbishop Lazarus. He led us down here to find the lost prince. The bastard led us into a trap. Now everyone is dead, killed by a demon he called the Butcher. Avenge us! Find this butcher and slay him, so that our souls may finally rest.
Your death will be avenged.
This begins the quest titled The Butcher, perhaps the most pivotal questline for Farnham's story arc in the game, and for enthralling the player to boot. However, if we dare enter the Butcher's lair found in level 2 of the cathedral's labyrinth, and cut content is enabled, we find a hellish massacre has occurred, where the bodies of the slain townsmen are strewn about. This must have been a gruesome sight of Farnham's battle, as when asked for any clues to this butcher, Farnham will sob as he's forced to relive the ordeal.
Big cleaver, killing all my friends. Couldn't stop him, had to run away, couldn't save them. Trapped in a room with so many bodies, so many friends. No!
The rest of the townsfolk, one by one, will relay the story of this butcher, and we get the feeling there's good reason that Farnham fears the demon and searches for solace in the bottom of a mug.
Yes, Farnham has mumbled something about a hulking brute who wielded a fierce weapon. I believe he called him a butcher.
I saw what Farnham calls the Butcher, as it swathed a path through the bodies of my friends. He swung a cleaver as large as an axe, hewing limbs and cutting down brave men where they stood. I was separated from the fray by a host of small screeching demons, and somehow found the stairway leading out. I never saw that hideous beast again, but his blood-stained visage haunts me to this day.
By the light I know of this vile demon, There were many that bore the scars of his wrath upon their bodies when the few survivors of the charge led by Lazarus crawled from the cathedral. I don't know what he used to slice open his victims, but it could not have been of this world. It left wounds festering with disease, and even I found them almost impossible to treat. Beware if you plan to battle this fiend.
I know more than you think about that grisly fiend. His little friends got a hold of me and managed to get my leg before Griswald pulled me out of that hole. I'll put it bluntly. Kill him before he kills you and adds your corpse to his collection.
When Farnham said something about a butcher killing people, I immediately discounted it. But since you brought it up, maybe it is true.
The butcher is a sadistic creature that delights in the torture and pain of others. You have seen his handiwork in the drunkard Farnham. His destruction will do much to ensure the safety of this village.
It seems that the Archbishop Lazarus goaded many of the townsmen into venturing into the labyrinth to find the king's missing son. He played upon their fears and whipped them into a frenzied mob. None of them were prepared for what lay within the cold earth. Lazarus abandoned them down there, left in the clutches of unspeakable horrors, to die.
Worse yet, with the HD mod restoring the quest to its original size, the Butcher will have his own lair only accessible through a hellish portal.
Fresh meat.
It's there we confront and slay the Overlord demon, hefting a huge cleaver amidst its trophies of the dead.
The spirits of the dead are now avenged.
Though we find hide nor hair of this missing prince, Ulbricht. Farnham also would have further heartbreaking lines that never made it into the final game.
No, you can't make me go back there. I won't let you take me. Too much pain. Too many dead. Can't get the blood out of my eyes. My mouth.
Finally, near the climax of the game, we confront the bastard known as the Archbishop Lazarus, who'd been secretly serving the Lord of Terror, sacrificing the king's own son.
Abandon your foolish quest. All that awaits you is the wrath of my master. You are too late to save the child. Now you will join him.
Your madness ends here, betrayer.
It's only then do we again broach the topic of Lazarus, first with Ogden.
Lazarus was the archbishop who led many of the townspeople into the labyrinth. I lost many good friends that day, and Lazarus never returned. I suppose he was killed along with most of the others. If you would do me a favor, good master, please do not talk to Farnham about that day.
And then against the barkeep's wishes, with Farnham, proves far too distressing for him to bear.
They stab, then bite, then they're all around you. Liar! Liar! They're all dead. Dead! Do you hear me? They just keep falling and falling. The blood spilling out all over the floor. All his fault.
Murdering the unholy priest, unfortunately, does little for Farnham's fractured psyche. And so we then enter the outskirts of hell itself to face down the Lord of Terror, Diablo. Once killed, we learn that Diablo had taken over the young Prince Ulbricht's body in an unholy ritual performed by Lazarus, hence why he was in a weakened state, and in an ill-fated attempt to contain the evil, the warrior from the original party of heroes plunges the stone into his own head in a desperate attempt to gain control of the evil and save the townsfolk of Tristram, but now is left with the Lord of Terror's soul within him. But what of Farnham's fate among the other villagers? Our answer is found in Diablo 2, where we revisit the town of Tristram briefly in a quest called The Search for Cain, where we find a bound Decard Cain amidst the burned village as Hellspawn have raised it. Once brought back to safety, the scholar shares.
As a token of my gratitude, I will identify items for you at no charge. Regrettably, I could do nothing to prevent the disaster which devastated Tristram. It would appear that our greatest fears have come to pass. Diablo, the Lord of Terror, has once again been set loose upon the world. As you know, some time ago Diablo was slain beneath Tristram, and when our hero emerged triumphant from the labyrinth beneath town, we held a grand celebration that lasted several days. Yet, as the weeks passed, our hero became increasingly aloof. He kept his distance from the rest of the townsfolk and seemed to lapse into a dark, brooding depression. I thought that perhaps his ordeal had been so disturbing that he simply could not put it out of his mind. The hero seemed more tormented every passing day. I remember he awoke many times, screaming in the night, always something about the East. One day he simply left, and shortly thereafter Tristram was attacked by legions of foul demons. Many were slain, and the demons left me to die in that cursed cage. I believe now that Tristram's hero was that dark wanderer who passed this way before the monastery fell. I fear even worse, my friend. I fear that Diablo has taken possession of the hero who sought to slay him. If true, Diablo will become more powerful than ever before. You must stop him, or all will be lost.
Searching the town for survivors, we find poor Farnham was slain where he sat in his familiar drinking spot. His bottles are found near his splayed-out body. It's a possibility he died still in a befuddled stupor, just as he lived, not even getting to his feet before passing. Worse yet, there is no official explanation on who killed Farnham, whether the impish demon carvers, hell bovine, or skeleton warriors, as we saw in Marius's flashback of what followed in tow of the Dark Wanderer. We can only imagine how frozen in fear he must have been in a befuddled stupor, and unfortunately, it is possible a zombified Griswald with his brute strength caved in the skull of the man who Griswald claimed he would happily fight his battles for. This being a cruel display of depravity from the forces of hell for Farnham and the townsfolk for their perceived transgressions, daring to survive a primeval's occupation unscathed during the events of Diablo 1, Diablo himself demanding retribution. But how do you think Farnham died? He is easily my favourite character from the original game, and the amount of depth he brought to his backstory and voice performance still moved me to this day.
There's no question fans of Diablo 1 are already intimately familiar with Tristram's resident barmaid, Jillian. However, what the game never shows explicitly is Jillian's life after Diablo 1, and it ties to the prime evils, perhaps proving that her care for others and strong maternal instincts would ultimately spell her downfall. Here is the tragic, untold fall of Jillian the barmaid. When entering Tristram, Jillian the barmaid can be found in a small cottage behind Ogden's tavern where she works. Approaching her, we see a young woman with brown hair, a brown skirt, and somewhat revealing top, no doubt helpful for earning tips at the tavern. When greeted, she kindly asks,
"Good day. How may I serve you?"
To better understand Jillian and her role in Tristram before her eventual fate, we then turn to her fellow townsfolk and Jillian herself. Interestingly, only through quest dialogue is it that we begin to piece together the town's condition, Jillian's family history, and most notably, the young barmaid's ignorance at the horrors unfolding around her. For example, when speaking of Lazarus, she says,
I remember Lazarus as being a very kind and giving man. He spoke at my mother's funeral and was supportive of my grandmother and myself in a very troubled time. I pray every night that somehow he is still alive and safe.
A strikingly out-of-touch perspective, one only the fortunate or naive could hold about such a betrayer. Similarly, when discussing the fell King Leoric, she mourns.
I don't like to think about how the king died. I like to remember him for the kind and just ruler that he was. His death was so sad and seemed very wrong somehow.
Then, of course, there's the butcher, in which Jillian says,
Farnham said something about a butcher killing people. I immediately discounted it. But since you brought it up, maybe it is true.
What did she think, a legitimate butcher had simply gone rogue? She only needs to walk 12 steps over to Pepin's shack to see the carnage he'd wrought for herself. Speaking of those who encountered the butcher firsthand, Wirt, the peg-legged boy, knows the creature's cruelty all too well.
I'll put it bluntly. Kill him before he kills you and adds your corpse to his collection!
Yet when asked about Jillian, his tone changes entirely.
If I were a few years older, I would shower her with whatever riches I could muster. And let me assure you, I could get my hands on some very nice stuff. Jillian is a beautiful girl who should get out of Tristram as soon as it is safe. Maybe I'll take her with me when I go.
Unrequited affection, perhaps? But what does Jillian think of Wirt? Of the boy, she says.
I grew up with Wirt's mother, Canis. Although she was only slightly hurt when those hideous creatures stole him, she never recovered. I think she died of a broken heart. Wirt has become a mean-spirited youngster, looking only to profit from the sweat of others. I know that he suffered and has seen horrors that I cannot even imagine. But some of that darkness hangs over him still.
A cold assessment, but one that shows Jillian is not entirely blind to the darkness surrounding the town. Pepin, however, holds a special place in the barmaid's heart.
Pepin saved my grandmother's life, and I know that I can never repay him for that. His ability to heal any sickness is more powerful than the mightiest sword and more mysterious than any spell you can name. If you ever are in need of healing, Pepin can help you.
Yet Pepin also adds an important detail about Jillian's situation.
Ogden's barmaid is a sweet girl. Her grandmother is quite ill and suffers from delusions. She claims that they are visions, but I have no proof of that one way or the other.
So are these visions real or madness? Jillian herself says,
My grandmother had a dream that you would come and talk to me. She has visions, you know, and can see into the future.
Whether prophetic or delusion is unclear, but these visions will prove significant later. Griswald, the town blacksmith, offers another perspective, and Jillian in turn speaks highly of him. Decard Cain also holds Jillian in high regard.
Oh, Jillian is a nice lass. Shame that her gammer is in such poor health, or I would arrange to get both of them out of here on one of the trading caravans.
And Jillian in turn speaks highly of him.
Our blacksmith is a point of pride to the people of Tristram. Not only is he a master craftsman who has won many contests within his guild, but he received praises from our King Leoric himself. May his soul rest in peace. Griswald is also a great hero. Just ask Cain.
Decard Cain also holds Jillian in high regard.
Oh, Jillian is a fine woman, much adored for her high spirits and her quick laugh. She holds a special place in my heart. She stays on at the tavern to support her elderly grandmother, who is too sick to travel. I sometimes fear for her safety, but I know that any man in the village would rather die than see her harmed.
Rather die than see her harmed. A line that will become tragically ironic in hindsight.
Cain has been the storyteller of Tristram for as long as I can remember. He knows so much and can tell you just about anything. About almost everything.
Finally, we come to Ogden, her employer.
Jillian, my barmaid? If it were not for her sense of duty to her grandam, she would have fled from here long ago. Goodness knows I begged her to leave, telling her that I would watch after the old woman, but she is too sweet and caring to have done so.
Jillian herself adds,
Ogden and his wife have taken me and my grandmother into their home. and have even let me earn a few gold pieces by working at the inn. I owe so much to them, and hope one day to leave this place and help them start a grand hotel in the east.
And during the poisoned well crisis.
My grandmother is very weak, and Garda says that we cannot drink the water from the wells. Please, can you do something to help us?
It's clear Jillian is deeply rooted in duty, kindness, and responsibility. Though, as for Farnham, the bar patron who's always sourced and demanding another drink from Jillian.
The gal who brings the drinks? Oh, yeah. What a pretty lady. So nice, too.
Farnham is a drunkard who fills his belly with ale and everyone else's ears with nonsense. I know that both Pepin and Ogden feel sympathy for him, but I get so frustrated watching him slip farther and farther into a befuddled stupor every night.
Harsh, especially after everything he's seen. Can you blame him from trying to escape reality? A question that will soon become painfully relevant to Jillian herself. Which brings us to the final villager, Adria the witch, in which Jillian says,
"The woman at the edge of town is a witch. She seems nice enough, and her name Adria is very pleasing to the ear, but I'm very afraid of her. It would take someone quite brave like you to see what she is doing out there."
And yet Adria seems to understand Jillian better than anyone else.
Corruption has the strength of deceit, but innocence holds the power of purity. The young woman Jillian has a pure heart, placing the needs of her matriarch over her own. She fears me, but it is only because she does not understand me.
Perhaps in the end, Jillian did not fear Adria enough. As we later learn, after Diablo was defeated by the warrior at the culmination of Diablo 1, he would return from the very brink of hell, and a grand celebration was held in Tristram. However, when the warrior departed, death and destruction soon follow in his wake. This devastation is something we as the players witness in Diablo 2 firsthand. Upon returning to the ruined, burned remains of Tristram, we find Jillian is notably absent, one of the few townsfolk unaccounted for. And it then raised the question, well, what became of her? Did she perish in the flames alongside so many others? Or did she somehow escape the town's destruction? Our first clear insight into Jillian's life after Tristram comes in Diablo 3 through her diary. In it, a weary former barmaid, though her voice has changed quite a lot, reflects on her situation.
Ogden and his wife have offered to let me and grandmother continue to stay with them. I think we will, now that the troubles are over. I am still tormented by horrific nightmares. I keep hoping they will fade, but they seem to be getting stronger.
Jillian remained with Ogden and his wife Garda for a time, likely to help care for her ailing grandmother, the last anchor tying her to Tristram. Her next entry, however, is far more erratic, marking the moment she accepts an offer from Adria the witch.
To think I was once afraid of Adria. She is going to take me to Chaldeum with her soon. Chaldeum? I never thought to see it with my own eyes. Though it saddens me to leave Ogden and his wife, Adria assures me that she will find a cure for my nightmares.
After this, there is no further mention of her grandmother, and it's possible she remained in the care of Ogden and Garda, as Jillian had noted she was too sick to travel. Whether she later passed from natural causes or met the same grim fate as the rest of Tristram when it fell is unknown. But we do know what became of Jillian and Adria, as supplementary lore, such as the Book of Tyrael, provides some answers that we can piece together. Jillian's decision to leave with Adria ultimately saved her life, as not long after their departure, Tristram was overrun by demons and its people slaughtered. In the desert city of Chaldeum, Adria later gave birth to a daughter, Leah. She left the child in Jillian's care, placing a protective spell over their home before departing on a mysterious errand. Of course, we will explore Adria's errand and fate further in the Witcher's standalone video. But what happened of Jillian and Leah in Chaldeum, and visions that would come to haunt them, just like her grandmother? Well, in the book The Order, we learn that Jillian raised Leah as her own. So much so, Leah grew up believing Jillian was her biological mother, and Jillian never spoke of her father. Like Jillian, Leah experienced vivid dreams, and Jillian warned her to not mistake them for reality. Curious how she was so fervent to push her grandmother's dreams as real. So what happened? Well, in the beginning, Jillian and Leah were close. She would take Leah to markets, buying her small treats, and for a time they lived something resembling a normal life. But the scars of Tristram never truly faded. Jillian began to deteriorate mentally, plagued by paranoia and visions. She felt watched, pursued, haunted by something she could neither escape or understand. Her condition began to worsen over the years, and she became increasingly isolated, viewed with discomfort or suspicion by others in Caldeum. 8 years after Tristram's fall, Leah witnessed just how far her mother had slipped. Returning home one day, she found Jillian speaking as though unseen figures surrounded her, whispering about restless dead and demons. That same night, Decard Cain arrived. He spoke of a coming invasion led by Belial and Asmodan, but Jillian, already fraying, couldn't bear it. Overwhelmed, she confessed something deeply unsettling. She feared Leah, even more than she once feared the witch Adria. That fear did not erase her love. Despite this, later that night in a trance-like state, sleepwalking almost, Jillian approached Leah with a knife as she slept. But it was not cold intent, but a desperate, delusional act, spawned of visions that once benevolently guided her as it did her grandmother. Now she had come to believe that Leah was dangerous, that something within her had to be stopped. It was, in her mind, a terrible necessity. But when she went to strike, the latent power within Leah reacted. Cain had long described it as something powerful and unsettling. And in that moment, it surged to the surface. A fire erupted, consuming the very home, much like it did with the Wanderer. Cain and Leah escaped the blaze. Leah called out for Jillian, her mother, but Cain would tell her the truth. Jillian had survived, but her mind had finally broken. She was taken away to an asylum in Caldeum, where she would spend the rest of her days. In her final, lucid moments, Jillian claimed she'd been told the child must die, raising an unsettling question. Was this pure madness? Was something evil, or even benevolent, guiding her hand? Jillian's story stands as one of Tristram's most tragic legacies, a reminder that the town's horrors did not end with its fall. They simply lingered, festering within the minds and bodies of those who survived. And in many ways, Jillian herself became a warning of what might one day await Leah. Like many others who had a brush with the pernicious power of the primevals, was just another victim, a blathering madman left in their cruel wake, consumed by terror itself.
You haven't failed, old man. You've done exactly as you were meant to do. However, I am not the Archangel Tyrael. There. No. No, 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 no. You have done well, Marius. Now I think you shall have your reward. I've done to deserve it.
This is the tragic story and end of Wirt, the peg-legged boy. Wirt is a character in Diablo 1, found above the town of Tristram away from the main settlement, making it a little bit of a hike to visit him, though why he stays away from the town will soon make sense. See, Wirt's story is connected indelibly with his in-game function, and when we first meet the boy, when approached, he will beckon us over in a hushed whisper, giving the immediate warning his dealings are perhaps of the illicit nature, as he surreptitiously says,
"Psst, over here."
Wirt will then offer to sell a single expensive item, but the item in question is only revealed to the player if we churn out a hefty 50 gold just for a peek, which honestly is a rudimentary form of gambling and as such is not always in the player's favour.
I don't have a spell ready.
Now, as a quick piece of housekeeping as we continue Wirt's story, I'm going to be using something called the Beelzebub HD mod, which not only makes the graphics look a lot better, but also has Wirt wander closer to town so he's easier to access, and we'll find him plumped by the tree next to Jillian's house, which will make perfect sense later. But for now, it should be noted, in regard to the boy's self-interested aid to the hero, Wirt possesses 3 distinct general pieces of gossip which are meant to help the player in their journey as well as add to the overall story, such as the self-aggrandizing remark.
In case you haven't noticed, I don't buy anything from Tristram. I am an importer of quality goods. If you want to peddle your junk, you'll have to see Griswald, Pepin, or that witch Adria. I'm sure they'll snap up whatever you can bring them.
Also, the sage piece of wisdom when it comes to Farnham the drunk's advice.
Don't trust everything the drunk says. Too many ales have fogged his vision and his good sense.
And perhaps the most insightful piece of advice when it comes to some items and less useful townsfolk.
Not everyone in Tristram has a use or a market for everything you'll find in the labyrinth. Not even me, as hard as that is to believe. Sometimes only you will be able to find a purpose for some things.
However, to discover clues as to why a young boy no more than 10 years old is an amputee outcast turned mean-spirited merchant, plus what may stop the boy from spending the gold he so happily hoards, we shall first speak to Wirt's fellow villagers to learn of his history through general gossip/quest dialogue, and then his ties to specific quests, learning more of the dark origin of his disability, as well as his questionable ability to procure high-value items, in which Adria the witch cognizes.
I sense a soul in search of answers. There is much about the future we cannot see, but when it comes, it will be the children who wield it. The boy Wirt has a blackness upon his soul, but he poses no threat to the town or its people. His secretive dealings with the urchins and unspoken guilds of nearby towns gain him access to many devices that cannot be easily found in Tristram. While his methods may be reproachful, Wirt can provide assistance for your battle against the encroaching darkness.
A fairly poignant piece of insight on the boy's dealings and spiritual malady. And just as a quick aside, if you're wondering why Wirt and Adria are the only 2 townsfolk to mispronounce Tristram as Tristram, it's because they're voiced by the same voice actress, Lani Minella. Now try and unhear it. Back to Wirt's thoughts on the witch. Though Wirt, being the pragmatic tradesman, is openly aggrieved not just by Adria's foresight, but more so the reclusive witch's inexplicable ability to procure more esoteric items than the boy.
Adria truly bothers me. Sure, Cain is creepy in what he can tell you about the past, but that witch can see into your past. She always has some way to get whatever she needs, too. Adria gets her hands on more merchandise than I've seen pass through the gates of the King's Bazaar during High Festival.
Next up, the drunk Farnham speaks not of Wirt's mercantile ability, but rather, like Adria, the blackness on Wirt's soul.
Can't a fellow drink in peace? Wirt is a kid with more problems than even me, and I know all about problems. Listen here, that kid's got a sweet deal. He's been there, lost a leg. Gotta walk around on a piece of wood. So sad. So sad.
Where has he been, though? Farnham seems to be alluding to a treacherous place where Wirt lost a leg. When asking the boy about Farnham, it puts any question to where he lost his leg to rest.
Farnham, now there is a man with serious problems, and I know all about how serious problems can be. He trusted too much in the integrity of one man, and Lazarus led him into the very jaws of death. Oh, I know what it's like down there, so don't even start telling me about your plans to destroy the evil that dwells in that labyrinth. Just watch your legs.
What evil Wirt had faced, and that he cryptically alludes to, is something we shall soon discover as well. Speaking of the leg he lost, the healer Pepin empathizes.
What ails you, my friend? Poor Wirt. I did all that was possible for the child, but I know he despises that wooden peg that I was forced to attach to his leg. His wounds were hideous. No one, and especially such a young child, should have to suffer the way he did.
Imagining a young boy wounded in any capacity, let alone having them being described as quote-unquote hideous. Imagine Wirt losing a leg without the wonders of modern medicine and possibly anesthesia is almost too much to bear. Despite this, Wirt praises Pepin, saying,
"As long as you don't need anything reattached, old Pepin is as good as they come. If I'd have had some of those potions he brews, I might still have my leg."
Speaking of Wirt's leg, let's look at the man who supposedly saved the boy from whatever attacked him down in the labyrinth, as Wirt says of Griswald the blacksmith.
"I guess I owe the blacksmith my life, what there is of it. Sure, Griswald offered me an apprenticeship at the smithy, and he's a nice enough guy, but I'll never get enough money to... Well, let's just say that I have definite plans that require a large amount of gold."
But what are these plans that Wirt has conjured that require copious amounts of gold? Griswold instead shows paternal concern for the boy he saved, admitting,
"Well, what can I do for you? That lad is going to get himself into serious trouble. Or I guess I should say, again. I've tried to interest him in working here and learning an honest trade, but he prefers the high profits of dealing in goods of dubious origin. I cannot hold that against him after what happened to him, but I do wish he would at least be careful."
Speaking of another man invested in Wirt's future, Wirt says of his dealings with the elderly Cain,
"Cain knows too much. He scares the life out of me, even more than that woman across the river. He keeps telling me about how lucky I am to be alive and how my story is foretold in legend. I think he's off his crock."
It's only when speaking to Deckard Cain do we learn the full extent of the horrors of his past, as Cain recalls.
"Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen. The story of Wirt is a frightening and tragic one. He was taken from the arms of his mother and dragged into the labyrinth by the small, foul demons that wield wicked spears. There were many other children taken that day, including the son of King Leoric. The knights of the palace went below, but never returned. The blacksmith found the boy, but only after the foul beasts had begun to torture him for their sadistic pleasures."
This dark revelation draws forth so many questions, such as, why were many children, including Leoric's son, taken from the town of Tristram and dragged into the labyrinth by the demons? Now, just before we delve deeper into that disturbing tale, let's finish looking at dialogue with the two final villagers, Ogden and Jillian, both of whom have had a little contact with the confronting demon occupation of the cathedral, and as such, they seem to be rather apathetic to Wirt's plight compared to their fellow townsfolk who have seen what the demons can do firsthand, as Ogden, the innkeeper, rather callously believes that Wirt's missing leg may be the boy's own doing, scoffing.
"Greetings, good master. Welcome to the Tavern of the Rising Sun. Wirt is a rapscallion and a little scoundrel. He was always getting into trouble, and it's no surprise what happened to him. He probably went fooling about someplace that he shouldn't have been. I feel sorry for the boy, but I don't abide the company that he keeps."
It makes us wonder, which places has Wirt been fooling around that bothers Ogden so? Perhaps he's been scaring poor Ogden's cows, as there are rumours someone has been prodding them incessantly. There is also the matter of Ogden's missing sign, though that turned out to be the impish fallen demons. Wirt's still got the bum rap.
What? Is he saying I took that? I suppose that Griswold is on his side too. Look, I got over simple sign stealing months ago. You can't turn a profit on a piece of wood.
Wirt, on the other hand, expresses apparent disdain for Ogden's lack of business acumen, right before admitting it's good he keeps the barmaid on, and his love for shepherd's pie.
Ogden is a fool for staying here. I could get him out of town for a very reasonable price, but he insists on trying to make a go of it with that stupid tavern. I guess at the least he gives Jillian a place to work, and his wife Garda does make a superb shepherd's pie.
Next, when speaking to Jillian, do we learn more of the boy's mother, Canis, and perhaps why he's grown cold since her death.
Good day. How may I serve you? I grew up with Wirt's mother, Canis. Although she was only slightly hurt when those hideous creatures stole him, she never recovered. I think she died of a broken heart. Wirt has become a mean-spirited youngster, looking only to profit from the sweat of others. I know that he suffered and has seen horrors that I cannot even imagine. But some of that darkness hangs over him still.
The orphaned Wirt then surprisingly gives us an admission when asking about Jillian, perhaps clearing up why he is saving gold. An admission which no doubt would shock the busty barmaid to hear.
If I were a few years older, I would shower her with whatever riches I could muster. And let me assure you, I could get my hands on some very nice stuff. Jillian is a beautiful girl who should get out of Tristram as soon as it is safe. Maybe I'll take her with me when I go.
Unfortunately, we'd learned two things that makes Wirt's tale of unrequited love seem like he may not ride off with Jillian into the sunset. One, Jillian doesn't look like she's going to leave Tristram anytime soon due to her ailing grandmother's health, as Ogden relays.
Jillian, my barmaid? If it were not for her sense of duty to her grandam, she would have fled from here long ago. Goodness knows I begged her to leave, telling her that I would watch after the old woman, but she is too sweet and caring to have done so.
2. Unfortunately, Cain shares during cut content about the priest Tremaine why the villagers cannot simply leave the town.
Tremaine is an occasional visitor to our town and seems to have little problem coming and going. It is strange how at times anyone who tries to leave Tristram is hunted down and slain by the cloaked riders, and at other times it is a simple matter to leave. I think it is that uncertain fear that keeps some of us here. But we are glad for Tremaine's bravery and luck in keeping some contact with the rest of the kingdom.
Now, it should be noted, as expected, these Dark Riders are serving Diablo. And as such, it's only at his whim can some leave. And we shall discover why later in the video. This also begs the question, is Wirt allowed to leave with his beloved Jillian? Or do the burning hells, after getting a taste for the boy taking his leg, decide it's a meal worth finishing? Well, to answer this, we now need to delve into how the Lord of Terror has returned, and the real reason it's directly linked with demons targeting little boys of Tristram to torture. See, when entering level 3 of the catacombs, a new quest to find King Leoric's tomb is initiated, and Ogden, the innkeeper, beseeches.
The village needs your help, good master. Some months ago, King Leoric's son, Prince Albrecht, was kidnapped. The king went into a rage and scoured the village for his missing child. With each passing day, Leoric seemed to slip deeper into madness. He sought to blame innocent townsfolk for the boy's disappearance and had them brutally executed. Less than half of us survived his insanity. The king's knights and priests tried to placate him, but he turned against them and, sadly, they were forced to kill him.
So, as mentioned by Cain, the king's son, also around the same age as Wirt, and other boys were absconded with that night. By demons, it seems. It's only later revealed during a quest to hunt down the disappearing Archbishop Lazarus, Leoric's right hand, does Cain reveal.
The Archbishop Lazarus, once King Leoric's most trusted advisor, led a party of simple townsfolk into the labyrinth to find the king's missing son, Albrecht. Quite some time passed before they returned, and only a few of them escaped with their lives. Curse me for a fool! I should have suspected his veiled treachery then. It must have been Lazarus himself who kidnapped Albrecht and has since hidden him within the labyrinth. I do not understand why the Archbishop turned to the darkness, or what his interest is in the child. Unless he means to sacrifice him to his dark masters. That must be what he has planned. The survivors of his rescue party say that Lazarus was last seen running into the deepest bowels of the labyrinth. You must hurry and save the prince from the sacrificial blade of this demented fiend.
Griswald the blacksmith then recounts Lazarus's part in aiding the townsfolk to find Albrecht.
I was there when Lazarus led us into the labyrinth. He spoke of holy retribution, but when we started fighting those hellspawn, he did not so much as lift his mace against them. He just ran deeper into the dim, endless chambers that were filled with the servants of darkness.
An embittered Wirt then guides on Lazarus.
Yes, the righteous Lazarus, who is so effective against those monsters down there. And didn't help save my leg, did it? Look, I'll give you a free piece of advice. Ask Farnham, he was there.
Lazarus, being the reason for the failed excursion to save Albrecht, has Farnham break down, recalling.
They stab, then bite, then they're all around you. Liar, liar! They're all dead, dead. Do you hear me? They just keep falling and falling. The blood spilling out all over the floor. All his fault.
And it seems things are somehow actually worse than they appear, as when we confront the bastard Lazarus, he's standing over the corpse of a young boy who he had just sacrificed, taunting.
Abandon your foolish quest. All that awaits you is the wrath of my master. You are too late to save the child. Now you will join him.
Time to die.
We kill him for his transgressions.
Your madness ends here, betrayer.
It's Cain who then muses.
Your story is quite grim, my friend. Lazarus will surely burn in hell for his horrific deed. The boy that you describe is not our prince. But I believe that Albrecht may yet be in danger. The symbol of power that you speak of must be a portal in the very heart of the labyrinth. Know this, my friend. The evil that you move against is the Dark Lord of Terror. He is known to mortal men as Diablo. It was he who was imprisoned within the labyrinth many centuries ago, and I fear that he seeks to once again sow chaos in the realm of mankind. You must venture through the portal and destroy Diablo before it is too late.
Now, why Diablo had Lazarus target young boys needs to be exposed before we circle back to how and why Wirt suffered his specific hellish torture and loss of his leg. See, it's only after the heroes kill the Lord of Terror does his hideous form show itself to be somewhat of a nightmarish guise covering the body of the very Prince Albrecht, containing Diablo's essence, which must be housed in a victim for the Lord of Terror to have a host. But why would a prime evil target a 10-year-old prince, specifically as his host, instead of, say, a powerful warrior? And how does that relate to the other children of Tristram's suffering? Well, originally, a weakened Diablo, being housed in the Soul Stone for an age, first had corrupted Lazarus in aiding him taking over King Leoric when they moved into Tristram. Although it ultimately drove the king mad, Diablo realized that Leoric's will was too strong in his weakened state, and turned away from the pious king, pouring his efforts into a poor Prince Albrecht, feeding on the young boy's terror and innocence. In fact, the demons that spawned in the labyrinth, as well as the labyrinth taking on hellish attributes and Diablo's form, were all said to have been inspired by the terror that Diablo cultivated within Albrecht's waking nightmare. However, there were two subsequent events that transpired now that Diablo took on a new host in Albrecht. The first was that Diablo was still weakened and needed time to feed on the boy's terror. As stated in the cut map of the Stars quest, Diablo would become nigh invincible if we didn't kill him once he reached his full potential.
Our time is running short. I sense his dark power building, and only you can stop him from attaining his full might.
So, the second event that brings us back to Wirt is obviously Lazarus when first kidnapping Albrecht. It seems the Archbishop was trying to throw off the scent of the villagers that he was targeting the prince specifically to become a host for Diablo, and so we had demons kidnap basically every boy in the village, including Wirt. But things actually get darker. Remember the boy Lazarus was sacrificing? Well, we have seen adult bodies strewn about in Diablo 1 constantly. So why did Lazarus take time to sacrifice a boy? I believe, whether it was Prince Ulbricht's kinship to boys or worse yet, Diablo, gorging on Ulbricht's terror, had a taste for young boys' fear, and as previously stated, the Dark Riders had kept certain villagers quarantined and afraid as Diablo fed on their terror and grew in power. This innocence seems to be his drug of choice, as Wirt, although not needed, was gifted to a rather foul demon himself as a plaything, which we're about to discuss. See, Cain had previously told us that it was the Fallen that had kidnapped Wirt, what with them being small and attacking at night as seen during Ogden's side quest, plus they're the only demons wielding spears. As disturbing as it is to imagine Wirt surrounded by these screeching fiends, cutting and gnawing and biting as Farnham stated, we learn from Wirt he was taken to a specific place, the lair of the Butcher, an overlord demon which Farnham the Drunk had nicknamed, who lay in wait for the doomed villagers to attempt to rescue Ulbricht on level 2 of the labyrinth. A harrowing tale that broke poor Farnham.
Big cleaver, killing all my friends. Couldn't stop him. Had to run away. Couldn't save them. Trapped in a room with so many bodies. So many friends. No!
A harrowing tale that's the reason for poor Farnham's alcoholism. Griswald also remembers.
I saw what Farnham calls the Butcher as it swathed a path through the bodies of my friends. He swung a cleaver as large as an axe, hewing limbs and cutting down brave men where they stood. I was separated from the fray by a host of small screeching demons, and somehow found the stairway leading out. I never saw that hideous beast again, but his blood-stained visage haunts me to this day.
And Wirt himself actually possessed morbid dialogue about his time in the Butcher's care.
I know more than you think about that grisly fiend. His little friends got a hold of me and managed to get my leg before Griswold pulled me out of that hole. I'll put it bluntly. Kill him before he kills you and adds your corpse to his collection.
Now, this is probably news to people who haven't experienced Diablo's extensive cut content and dialogue, but the Butcher was originally not meant to spring forth from his lair and say his famous line,
"Fresh meat."
Instead, he would possess his own dungeon, which the player must discern how to access, only through dialogue with the villagers. Wirt himself would have originally experienced so much trauma from even the mere mention of this hulking brute that his speech would deteriorate completely.
Hear over, psst. Chamber Butcher, the from Spell Portal Town the cast. Saying am I what see? Get out it figured you haven't. Understand could you even so simple it make to try-die. Chamber Butcher, the from Spell Portal Town the cast.
Obviously he gives us a clue to cast a town portal in the Butcher's original lair. But funnily enough, others such as Ogden, upon hearing Wirt's apparent propensity in regressing when speaking about the Butcher, has exactly 0 shits to give.
Wirt is talking backwards again? Oh, I hate it when he does that. I don't have time to help you decipher his riddle, but I will tell you one thing. Don't get involved with that rapscallion.
Cain, on the other hand, shares one of his most gruesome and heartbreaking revelations not seen in the final release.
You must have been speaking with Wirt. His is a sad story indeed. That poor child was taken into the labyrinth by the demons, ripped from the very arms of his mother, Canis. May her soul rest in peace. The boy managed to escape, but only after they had chewed off his leg, and he has not been quite sane since. He often speaks in riddles, but his knowledge of the labyrinth may hold some truth.
So, Wirt's leg was not cut, but chewed off, which is absolutely vile. But what happened to Wirt after Diablo was slain? Did he make it out of Tristram with the Dark Riders supposedly gone? Was he able to take the small fortune he amassed by grifting the heroes for a peek at his wares, and finally whisk Jillian away, nestling at her ample breast, for comfort as they rode into the sunset happily ever after? In Diablo 2, we learn the warrior, post-felling the Lord of Terror, becomes Diablo's host, taking the Soulstone into his own head rather forcefully. After departing Tristram, heading east to desperately search for aid, a horde of demons follow in his wake, starting in the newly cleansed town of Tristram, after they celebrate the primeval's destruction prematurely. When the heroes of Diablo 2 search the burning town of Tristram, looking for the lost Decard Cain, we're stunned by the sight of the unspeakable blasphemies that have transpired to the old inhabitants. Worse yet, we find the corpse of the peg-legged boy Wirt, who hadn't gotten far from his old tree, and clearly didn't make it out with Jillian as he'd once hoped. Approaching his body, we find the boy is splayed out on his back, lying in a pool of his own blood with bloody footprints nearby. And we'll soon discuss officially who was responsible for his death. But first, the developers added a dark callback to the boy's vocation, as he was known to greedily take the player's gold for a peek at his wares. However, this time, we find, he pays us back in full. Scooping up said gold, we can also pop off his peg leg, which has lore of its own that is tied to Wirt's grisly fate. See, by combining Wirt's infamous leg with a scroll of town portal, players could access an infamous secret cow level. Inaccurately rumoured to exist in the first game, the developers thought it was best to add it into the second, where the player could fight a herd of hell bovine. But what does this have to do with Wirt? Well, remember how I said somebody had been annoying the cows of Tristram? On the flavour text for these bipedal bovines it reads, "Given sentience by Diablo, and driven mad by the incessant prodding they suffered at the hands of the heroes that swarmed to Tristram, these hell-spawned bovines seek to destroy those who abused them when they were docile and defenceless. Armed with vicious halberds, they lie in wait just on the other side of a secret portal that is opened with the quote-unquote help of the first victim." So Wirt was the first to be killed by the cows. Worse yet, the text indicates the player is responsible, not only for their creation, but also Wirt's demise, as the cows were driven mad by our own desire to discover a secret cow level that never existed in Diablo 1, only for the bovines to strike back, actually creating their own cow level and lying in wait for our return. And worst of all, Wirt may have survived if we, collectively, weren't so curious. Things don't end there for poor Wirt. His lore continues in Diablo 3. As in Diablo 2, we learn the Fallen weren't just mindless demons, but had their own important figures in their culture. Sometimes they would call out said Fallen's name, one of which was Bishibosh, who the heroes had subsequently killed. We can, however, find the remains of Bishibosh, who randomly spawns in the Den of the Fallen in Diablo 3. He also can drop a legendary item, being a skeletal mace named Wirt's original leg, reading, "Once belonging to a disgruntled lad named Wirt. This leg was amputated after he suffered grievous wounds at the hands of the demonic torturers near the town of Tristram." Fallen, no doubt proud of their handiwork, must have gifted the remains to Bishibosh in deference, almost like a rabbit foot necklace, except this was a 10-year-old boy's leg he carried as a souvenir and possibly weapon, after learning of every horror the boy had faced. I have no doubt that if Ogden were around to hear this story, he would still give zero shits about Wirt's tragic life and downfall.
I'll bet that Wirt saw you coming and put on an act just so he could laugh at you later when you're running around the town with your nose in the dirt. I'd ignore it. If Adria wants some mushrooms in her stew, then that is her business, but I can't help you find any. Black mushrooms. Disgusting. disgusting.
It's sad to think Ogden's cheerful greeting may be the single biggest clue to the innkeeper's eventual grisly death. Let me explain. Ogden is Tristram's resident innkeeper and owner of the two-story tavern located next to Griswold's workshop. When first approached, we find the innkeeper out front of his sizable establishment, ready to greet any and all travellers passing through town, welcoming.
Greetings, good master. Welcome to the Tavern of the Rising Sun.
And it's odd that this Tavern of the Rising Sun has no signage to let weary travellers know of its function, instead Ogden remaining outside, but that's something we shall circle back to. Looking closer at the man, we see he's garbed in a simple tan tunic mixed with brown, looking about constantly as if ready to dart inside at any sign of danger and lock the bottom section of his large two-part door to peer over the top until it's safe to come outside. Although we learn that Ogden's establishment stores food and drink for the town to consume, the innkeeper serves no in-game function, as there is no need to eat in the world of Diablo, nor, unlike later RPGs, the ability to rest a spell and recuperate either. So if Ogden doesn't provide any tangible services for the player, what does he do? Well, first, he has two pieces of dialogue outside of quests or gossip. The first arguably sets the tone for the entire gothic horror that is Diablo 1, as when you first arrive in town, he immediately beseeches.
Thank goodness you've returned. Much has changed since you lived here, my friend. All was peaceful until the Dark Riders came and destroyed our village. Many were cut down where they stood, and those who took up arms were slain or dragged away to become slaves, or worse. The church at the edge of town has been desecrated and is being used for dark rituals. The screams that echo in the night are inhuman, but some of our townsfolk may yet survive. Follow the path that lies between my tavern and the blacksmith shop to find the church and save who you can. Perhaps I can tell you more if we speak again. Good luck.
What a grim revelation. What's amazing about Ogden as a small aside is he's voiced by none other than writer/producer from Blizzard North, Bill Roper, who also voiced the Butcher and the Lord of Terror Diablo himself. On that note, I wonder if it was Roper who told you to brush your teeth.
Eat your vegetables and brush after every meal.
Back to Ogden. The second less dark piece of information Ogden shares is his only in-game mechanic/lore tidbit, despite the man clearly being a non-combatant with a nervous demeanor to boot, is no doubt from overhearing warriors sharing knowledge when haunting his inn, as he shrewdly recounts.
Many adventurers have graced the tables of my tavern, and 10 times as many stories have been told over as much ale. The only thing that I ever heard any of them agree on was this old axiom. Perhaps it will help you. You can cut the flesh, but you must crush the bone.
This is actually a keen insight in Diablo 1, as swords are better to cut undead flesh and maces are superior against the brittle bones of skeletal warriors. Speaking of Ogden being out of touch, when it comes to the forces of hell, we can only get a true perspective on the innkeeper when speaking to his fellow townsfolk. As every Diablo 1 fan is aware, the Butcher was a demon who slaughtered a good chunk of Tristram's populace under the foul instructions of the Archbishop Lazarus. One of his most prominent victims is the 10-year-old Wirt, the peg-legged boy, who had his limb chopped off in the demon's lair and is forced to sport a wooden appendage. To the earlier point of Ogden being unaware of the true danger of the demon's dwelling below in the labyrinth, he's mostly devoid of empathy for the troubled boy, saying,
Wirt is a rapscallion and a little scoundrel. He was always getting into trouble, and it's no surprise what happened to him. He probably went fooling about someplace that he shouldn't have been. I feel sorry for the boy, but I don't abide the company that he keeps.
Conversely, Wirt seems to share lesser misgivings about Ogden, though his concern is probably for the innkeeper's barmaid, to be honest.
Ogden is a fool for staying here. I could get him out of town for a very reasonable price, but he insists on trying to make a go of it with that stupid tavern. I guess at the least he gives Jillian a place to work, and his wife Garda does make a superb shepherd's pie.
We can divine two things from this interaction. One, Ogden may have been saved his later fate if he was kinder to Wirt or deigned to accept the boy's help smuggling him out of town. And two, Ogden, working in the tavern along with Jillian, has an unseen wife, Garda, who is mentioned frequently. Or have we seen her? Interestingly, in Diablo 1's credits, we do see the interior of an inn that perhaps is the Tavern of the Rising Sun. However, with an aging man behind the counter, unless Cain jumped it to get himself a beer while Ogden was out back, it's stated in Diablo the Awakening that Ogden was in his mid-30s, so this is probably more a generic 3D render signaling adventure and not much more, but could we be seeing Ogden's wife Garda atop the stairs? Or perhaps Jillian? Back to the locals, Pepin, the local healer, then pushes the question of why Ogden simply doesn't leave town.
I really don't understand why Ogden stays here in Tristram. He suffers from a slight nervous condition, but he is an intelligent and industrious man who would do very well wherever he went. I suppose it may be the fear of the many murders that happen in the surrounding countryside, or perhaps the wishes of his wife that keep him and his family where they are.
So why does Ogden stay? Is it his wife? His fear of the Dark Riders he first mentions? Well, as an aside, Ogden too throws backhanded shade at Pepin.
Pepin is a good man, and certainly the most generous in the village. He's always attending to the needs of others, but trouble of some sort or another does seem to follow him wherever he goes.
Speaking of the needs of others, Jillian and her unseen grandmother does attest to his kind heart, saying of Ogden.
Ogden and his wife have taken me and my grandmother into their home, and have even let me earn a few gold pieces by working at the inn. I owe so much to them, and hope one day to leave this place and help them start a grand hotel in the east.
Unfortunately, Jillian never does start that hotel in the east. Always the east. Ogden, showing his kindness, has pushed many a times for Jillian to leave, saying,
Jillian, my barmaid? If it were not for her sense of duty to her granddam, she would have fled from here long ago. Goodness knows I begged her to leave, telling her that I would watch after the old woman, but she is too sweet and caring to have done so.
Speaking of perpetual tenants in the inn, the local liquored-up Farnham has this to say of Ogden and his wife.
Ogden is the best man in town. I don't think his wife likes me much, but as long as she keeps tapping kegs, I'll like her just fine. Seems like I've been spending more time with Ogden than most, but he's so good to me.
Ogden, perhaps despite Garda, has warmed more to the sourced Farnham than the fork-tongued Wirt, as he somewhat empathizes.
Farnham spends far too much time here drowning his sorrows in cheap ale. I would make him leave, but he did suffer so during his time in the labyrinth.
The final 3 villages further spread light on Ogden's indispensable time as Tristram's innkeeper, as Cain states.
Ogden has owned and run the Rising Sun Inn and Tavern for almost 4 years now. He purchased it just a few short months before everything here went to hell. He and his wife Garda do not have the money to leave, as they invested all they had in making a life for themselves here. He is a good man with a deep sense of responsibility.
Conversely, Ogden clearly respects the elder Cain.
If you want to know more about the history of our village, the storyteller Cain knows quite a bit about the past.
Griswald also sheds light on the desperate state Ogden is in, and worse, the town itself.
The innkeeper has little business and no real way of turning a profit. He manages to make ends meet by providing food and lodging for those who occasionally drift through the village. But they're as likely to sneak off into the night as they are to pay him. If it weren't for the stores of grains and dried meats he kept in his cellar, why, most of us would have starved during that first year when the entire countryside was overrun by demons.
Griswald the blacksmith is extremely knowledgeable about weapons and armor. If you ever need work done on your gear, he is definitely the man to see.
4 years of keeping the villagers alive and Farnham drunk makes you forgive his snide remarks and ignorance on the full nature of the evil surrounding him. With a mention of evil, there's a strange, reclusive Adria the witch who remains on the outskirts of town in her shack, a fact Ogden does not enjoy, but he respects.
Adria is wise beyond her years, but I must admit, she frightens me a little. Well, no matter. If you ever have need to trade in items of sorcery, she maintains a strangely well-stocked hut just across the river.
What's funny is that when completing the Black Mushroom quest, Ogden becomes incensed thinking we the player are accusing him of selling less than fresh produce.
Let me just say this. Both Garda and I would never, ever serve black mushrooms to our honored guests. If Adria wants some mushrooms in her stew, then that is her business, but I can't help you find any. Black mushrooms. Disgusting.
He's got his priorities right. Adria too shares a poignant thought.
Earth and walls and thatched canopy do not a home create. The innkeeper Ogden serves more of a purpose in this town than many understand. He provides shelter for Jillian and her matriarch, maintains what life Farnham has left to him, and provides an anchor for all who are left in the town to what Tristram once was. His tavern and the simple pleasures that can still be found there provide a glimpse of a life that the people here remember. It is that memory that continues to feed their hopes for your success.
So Ogden's purpose is not just sustenance, it's hope, a shining ray of light in the dark. No wonder his tavern was named the Rising Sun so aptly, something perhaps linked to a darker fate we shall soon discuss. First, Ogden is the bearer of two quests that relate to his and the town's downfall, the first being the Skeleton King.
The village needs your help, good master. Some months ago, King Leoric's son, Prince Albrecht, was kidnapped. The king went into a rage and scoured the village for his missing child. With each passing day, Leoric seemed to slip deeper into madness. He sought to blame innocent townsfolk for the boy's disappearance and had them brutally executed. Less than half of us survived his insanity. The king's knights and priests tried to placate him, but he turned against them and, sadly, they were forced to kill him. With his dying breath, the king called down a terrible curse upon his former followers. He vowed that they would serve him in darkness forever. This is where things take an even darker twist than I thought possible. Our former king has risen from his eternal sleep and now commands a legion of undead minions within the labyrinth. His body was buried in a tomb 3 levels beneath the cathedral. Please, good master, put his soul at ease by destroying his now cursed form.
What's interesting is that Ogden mournfully will give the news of Tristram's former king Leoric, though when approached about the king's guard, Lark Dunnan, who is also cursed and re-risen thanks to the Skeleton King, Ogden doesn't even want to hear a bad word about the man.
You speak of a brave warrior long dead. I'll have no such talk of speaking with departed souls in my inn-yard, thank you very much.
Once you've put down the undead king lifting the curse, Ogden comments.
The curse of our king is past, but I fear that it was only part of a greater evil at work. However, we may yet be saved from the darkness that consumes our land, for your victory is a good omen. May light guide you on your way, good master.
May light guide you. This statement shows the light was no doubt important to Ogden. I mean, his tavern is named after the rising sun, which brings us to Ogden's enemies and his downfall.
Master, I have a strange experience to relate. I know that you have a great knowledge of those monstrosities that inhabit the labyrinth, and this is something that I cannot understand for the very life of me. I was awakened during the night by a scraping sound just outside of my tavern. When I looked out from my bedroom, I saw the shapes of small, demon-like creatures in the inn-yard. After a short time, they ran off, but not before stealing the sign to my inn. I don't know why the demons would steal my sign, but leave my family in peace. 'Tis strange, no?
It's only when entering level 4 of the labyrinth do we come across a fallen who can talk and offers.
Hey! You that one that kill all! You get me magic banner or we attack! You no live with life! You kill big uglies and give back magic! Go past corner and door, find uglies! You give, you go!
Killing the overlords and retrieving the sign do we realize its significance, as upon seeing said sign, Snotspill exclaims,
You give? Yes, good! Go now! We strong! We kill all with big magic!
Forced to kill the creatures for the stolen signage, which we return to its rightful owner. It's only when speaking to Decard Cain do things finally make sense, as he surmises.
I see that this strange behavior puzzles you as well. I would surmise that since many demons fear the light of the sun and believe that it holds great power, it may be that the rising sun depicted on the sign you speak of has led them to believe that it too holds some arcane powers. Perhaps they are not all as smart as we had feared.
Now, the interplay between light and dark in this manner is a key concept in Diablo 1 which was somewhat forsaken later. As one, Phil Shank once stated that unlike in Diablo 2 onward, Tristram in Diablo 1 is in perpetual twilight, as if once night fell, unspeakable horrors would fall upon the town. True, we know that Diablo, gorging on the townsfolk fear, originally was going to burst forth and be nigh invincible thanks to the cut quest Map of the Stars. He literally was waiting for the moons to align. 3. Wirt was taken from his mother's arms, along with other boys, by the same fallen at night who hacked off his leg in a perverse ritualistic torture. 4. We know the Fallen are coward pack demons, quick to flee when confronted, but always lurking in the shadows, regrouping in numbers to take down the next victim. And it seems hell has a long memory. Although the fate of Ogden is never explicitly stated, what we do know is the fate of Tristram thanks to the events of Diablo 2. At the culmination of Diablo 1, the warrior shoved the soul stone in his head, taking on the burden of Diablo's spirit, and Cain states that after weeks of celebration, the warrior's demeanor, when he returned to Tristram, grew dark, and he left. It was only then the town was engulfed by demons and fire. Revisiting the inn in Diablo 2, like the rest of the town of Tristram, we find it deserted, desecrated, and set ablaze. Although the fate of Ogden is never explicitly stated, it's easy to surmise after seeing Diablo 2's opening cinematic that the Wanderer called upon the demons, and the tavern was no doubt destroyed in a similar manner. Ogden must have been petrified, and although it's easy to miss, just outside the tavern door, a corpse is missing not one but all of its limbs. Just like Wirt, who Ogden had previously scoffed at, we see the muddy brown corpse and assume that it was once brown clothing, now caked in blood, and left by the door, not making it more than a few steps out. Ironically, we find the town was swarmed by carvers, a fallen variant, perhaps incensed at seeing the rising sun restored, or perhaps just enjoying hacking off limbs of a screeching innkeeper, just like they did the little boy Wirt at the behest of their dark master, intent on seeing the once beloved inn burn, hope, like the rays of the sun, snuffed out with it.
Griswald? Good old Griswald. I love him like a brother.
We've fought together, you know, back when we... Lazarus!
This is the tragic story and end of Griswold the blacksmith. Griswold the blacksmith is first encountered just to the right of the well in the town of Tristram. Like his name implies, he runs the smithy named Griswold's Fine Weapons, and when approached, we see he's a tall, broad man, bald with a beard and apparently has an injured right leg, as he's said to walk with a limp, though one would never know as he never moves from out front of his smithy, and perhaps his most memorable trait being his simulacrum of a Scottish accent, despite being from Candaris like the other villagers. When greeting the blacksmith, he will cheerily question,
"Whoa, what can I do for you?"
We then learn of Griswold's invaluable in-game function. Despite the town barely surviving the occupation of Hell's forces, he keeps his forge hot and is willing to trade with adventurers, making sure they have sharp steel as he buys and sells weapons and armor, except for magic staves, and accessories. He also repairs damaged armor and weapons at a price. It should be further noted in regards to Griswold's vocation, he will provide critical insight into the use of the weapons that he sells, such as, two examples being, the axe and its damage versus speed.
The axe? Aye, that's a good weapon. Balanced against any foe. Look how it cleaves the air. And then, imagine a nice fat demon head in its path. Keep in mind, however, that it is slow to swing. But talk about dealing a heavy blow!
And the sword's balanced approach to slicing flesh.
Look at that edge, that balance. A sword in the right hands, and against the right foe, is the master of all weapons. Its keen blade finds little to hack or pierce on the undead, but against a living, breathing enemy, a sword will better slice their flesh,
Plus, blunt weapons' ability to crush bone.
If you're looking for a good weapon, let me show this to you. Take your basic blunt weapon, such as a mace. Works like a charm against most of those undying horrors down there, and there's nothing better to shatter skinny little skeletons.
When speaking to the other inhabitants of the town, we learn of the life of the selfless blacksmith, as well as his trials and tribulations, and invaluable contribution to the town with his forge, as Ogden the innkeeper will praise Griswold's skill.
Griswold the blacksmith is extremely knowledgeable about weapons and armor. If you ever need work done on your gear, he is definitely the man to see.
Likewise, Griswold praises Ogden for keeping the townsfolk fed for the 4 years they've been occupied by demons terrorizing the countryside.
The innkeeper has little business and no real way of turning a profit. He manages to make ends meet by providing food and lodging for those who occasionally drift through the village. But they're as likely to sneak off into the night as they are to pay him. If it weren't for the stores of grains and dried meats he kept in his cellar, why, most of us would have starved during that first year when the entire countryside was overrun by demons.
Speaking further to Griswold's considerate side, most of the other townsfolk are afraid of the witch Adria, nestled in her hut. Griswold, however, isn't afraid to praise the witch's prowess in the arcane arts.
Well, I have to practically smuggle in the metals and tools I need from caravans that skirt the edges of our damned town. That witch Adria always seems to get whatever she needs. If I knew even the smallest bit about how to harness magic as she did, I could make some truly incredible things.
Adria in turn shows her respect.
To a man who only knows iron, there is no greater magic than steel. The blacksmith Griswold is more of a sorcerer than he knows. His ability to meld fire and metal is unequaled in this land.
Pepin the healer, too, praises Griswold's efficacy with his forge.
Griswold knows as much about the art of war as I do about the art of healing. He is a shrewd merchant, but his work is second to none. Oh, I suppose that may be because he's the only blacksmith left here.
And Griswold will say of the healer,
a good man who puts the needs of others above his own. You won't find anyone left in Tristram, or anyone else for that matter, who has a bad thing to say about the healer.
Proving his dedication to the townsfolk, although busy with his tireless work creating weapons and armor, Griswold admits he wishes he could do more to help poor Jillian and her ailing grandmother.
Oh, Jillian is a nice lass. Shame that her gammer is in such poor health, or I would arrange to get both of them out of here on one of the trading caravans.
Jillian then praises Griswold's talents.
Our blacksmith is a point of pride to the people of Tristram. Not only is he a master craftsman who has won many contests within his guild, but he received praises from our King Leoric himself. May his soul rest in peace. Griswold is also a great hero. Just ask Cain.
Seems nobody bothered to tell Jillian what became of the skeleton King Leoric. Cain, who we were directed to by Jillian, then reveals a darker backstory.
Griswold, a man of great action and great courage. I bet he never told you about the time he went into the labyrinth to save Wirt, did he? He knows his fair share of the dangers to be found there. But then again, so do you. He is a skilled craftsman, and if he claims to be able to help you in any way, you can count on his honesty and his skill.
Griswold then compliments Cain on his storytelling skills.
Sometimes I think that Cain talks too much, but I guess that's his calling in life. If I could bend steel as well as he can bend your ear, I could make a suit of court plate good enough for an emperor.
Speaking of saving Wirt, the peg-legged boy has this to say about his rumoured saviour.
I guess I owe the blacksmith my life. What there is of it. Sure, Griswold offered me an apprenticeship at the smithy. He's a nice enough guy, but I'll never get enough money to... Well, let's just say that I have definite plans that require a large amount of gold.
Griswold touches on his time in the labyrinth and rescuing Wirt from the lair of a demon called the Butcher.
When I found Wirt, he was very near a room that sounds like the vile pitch you've described. The stench of death was heavy in the air, and consumed as I was with getting the lad to safety, I did not go further than I had to. If he claims to know something of that place, I would not discount his word easily.
Congruently, as we learned it was demons that gnawed off poor Wirt's leg, we also discover Griswold himself has a bum leg due to his brush with hell, as when broaching the topic of what happened in the labyrinth, thanks to this Lazarus, it nearly breaks the drunkard Farnham, who wails in a stupor.
Griswold? Good old Griswold. I love him like a brother. We fought together, you know, back when we... Lazarus!
Surprisingly, it was Farnham who saved the blacksmith during their fateful ambush at the hands of the betrayer Lazarus, as he recalls of the drunk.
I was with Farnham that night that Lazarus led us into the labyrinth. I never saw the Archbishop again, and I may not have survived if Farnham was not at my side. I fear that the attack left his soul as crippled as... well, another did my leg. I cannot fight this battle for him now. But I would if I could!
So, as we know, it was the Archbishop that lured most of the townsfolk to their deaths at the hands of this bloody butcher, while in service of his lord Diablo. Although the injury to his leg stalled Griswold's hero days, probably indefinitely, it never stopped his invaluable work on the forge, as perhaps the most pivotal of quests Griswold was involved with when battling the hordes of demons was when he tasked the hero with retrieving a hellish anvil from the forces of hell so he may forge us, the hero, an equally powerful weapon to battle the greater evil.
Greetings! It's always a pleasure to see one of my best customers. I know that you've been venturing deeper into the labyrinth, and there's a story I was told that you may find worth the time to listen to. One of the men who returned from the labyrinth told me about a mystic anvil that he came across during his escape. His description reminded me of legends I had heard in my youth about the burning Hellforge, where powerful weapons of magic are crafted. The legend had it that deep within the Hellforge rested the Anvil of Fury. This anvil contained within it the very essence of the demonic underworld. It is said that any weapon crafted upon the burning anvil is imbued with great power. If this anvil is indeed the Anvil of Fury, I may be able to make you a weapon capable of defeating even the darkest lord of hell. Find the anvil for me, and I'll get to work.
We then find the anvil's guarded by a demonic blacksmith of hell's own making.
I shall crush you!
Time to die. I need to get this to Griswold.
And after successfully retrieving the forge and returning to Griswold, he thanks.
Oh, I can hardly believe it! This is the Anvil of Fury! Good work, my friend. Now, we'll show those bastards that there are no weapons in hell more deadly than those made by men. Take this, and may light protect you.
We're then gifted with one of the most powerful weapons in a warrior's arsenal, Griswold's Edge. Quite likely the blade that eventually cut through the Lord of Terror's armoured flesh, ending his reign of terror on the town of Tristram. As we know, the warrior, post defeating the Lord of Terror, took in his soul stone to try and contain his evil essence. But what became of the stalwart Griswold, who was directly responsible for aiding in the defeat of Diablo himself? After Diablo was slain in the catacombs beneath the town of Tristram, a grand celebration that lasted several days was held. The hero that defeated the Lord of Terror looked as if he'd walked through hell itself, and as the weeks passed, he kept his distance from the rest of the townsfolk and seemed to lapse into a dark, brooding depression. One day, he simply left. And shortly thereafter, Tristram was attacked by a legion of foul demons. While many of the townsfolk were merely slain, some were forced into cursed servitude. During the events of Diablo 2, when returning to Tristram, we find what remains of the townsfolk and the poor blacksmith, now little more than an undead sentry wandering the town he once protected. This grisly discovery gets worse as it's compounded by the fact the Lord of Terror no doubt sees the warrior's memories and knows it was Griswald who supplied the weapons that the heroes used to battle the burning hells. Congruently, it was Griswald himself who tasked the warrior with stealing the coveted Hell Forge. Adding insult to injury, it was again the blacksmith who crafted a weapon on the very Hell Forge potent enough to kill the prime evil. Such transgressions cannot be left unpunished. And suffer Griswald did. As the official Diablo 2 on Ariat Summit reads, the stout blacksmith Griswald was one of those who were bound past death to attend to the desire of the three. Wandering the town he once loved, he uses arcane powers and unholy strength granted to his twisted body by Andariel to stop any from following the path of the Wanderer. So he was killed and resurrected not by Diablo, but specifically is mentioned the Maiden of Anguish Andariel. But why? Why not just kill him? And how on earth are these two interconnected, and does their dispute hold a higher meaning? Well, interestingly, the answer may lie within the cut content for Andariel specifically in Diablo 1. As many of you know, Diablo 1 had numerous cut quests removed before launch. These quests were nearly complete, featuring in-depth lore, voice acting, and both new and familiar monsters. Fortunately, with the Beelzebub HD mod, you can experience these quests today. One such quest was originally given by Jillian the barmaid, asking players to find missing villagers Ananias and Ruth. Notably, Jillian specifically mentions Ogden and Pepin as potential victims.
Beg pardon, but have you heard what has been happening? Some of the men have vanished from the village. Disa's sons, Aeneas and Ruth, claim to have seen strange lights glowing deep within the woods a few days ago, but no one has heard from them since. I too have seen a crimson shimmering from beyond the ash groves, but I've been too afraid to approach it. I fear that Ogden or our healer Pepin may be next. Won't you please find out what has happened?
When speaking to Decard Cain, he confirms Jillian's suspicions and also subtly casts doubt on the barmaid.
While the barmaid may seem a bit confused at times, it is true that men have been disappearing from the village. It reminds me of ancient writings about a demonic temptress called Andariel. Known as the Maiden of Anguish, her thirst for mortal blood was so great that she sought to learn a spell to breach the mortal realm. By seducing one of the dark sorcerers of the netherworld, Andariel took the knowledge she needed and so began to lure mortal men into her dark corner of hell. If these legends are true, she is not a creature to be taken lightly.
Adria the Witch mentions that Andariel has a strong preference for men.
The succubus is a demon that feasts upon the essence of mortal men. You will find that Andariel has quite an appetite. The town will soon be devoid of any adult males unless you stop her feeding now.
Indeed, we learn the grove where Andariel and her succubi reside was the only above-ground dungeon in-game, adorned with blood stars, the alluring lights that villagers spoke of. While battling Andariel, we find the corpses of villagers, presumably hapless men, lured to their doom. But what does this have to do with Griswald? Well, the plot thickens. When speaking to Ogden, he dismisses the rumour, having never seen the light himself.
Jillian has been going on and on about strange lights in the trees, but I haven't been able to make heads nor tails of her story. I certainly haven't seen any strange lights, and if I did, they would be the least of my worries.
Wirt seems eager to witness it.
No, I've been looking for those lights, but I can't find them. If Jillian says they are there, I believe her, but I have yet to see them for myself.
Well, what can I do for you?
However, the only villager who witnessed the siren's seductive shining stars was Griswald the blacksmith, who had this to say.
I admit that I too have seen these strange lights, but I have not felt pulled towards them. I'll be sure to steer clear of them, and will tell everyone that visits here to do likewise.
Thus, Griswold is the only townsman who was not tempted by Andariel, which would have infuriated the queen of the succubi at the time. And this raises several questions.
You lure no more men to their deaths.
I believe, like King Leoric, who could not fully be controlled by a weakened Diablo due to his mental fortitude and piety, that the unyielding good in Griswold was far too strong for a floozy such as Andariel to overcome, no matter her allure or power. But, as they say, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. And in terms of Andariel's revenge, when the warrior had all the villagers killed as he departed Tristram, Andariel could finally hollow out the remains of the blacksmith, feeding on his anguish as she desired, now having Griswold as a powerful puppet, forced to fell any who came near his beloved Tristram. A truly dark fate for the blacksmith. That is until the heroes of Diablo 2 put an end to the blasphemous charade, and eventually the evil temptress herself, hopefully giving Griswold's soul some modicum of peace. But his story doesn't end there. While many callbacks to Griswold through text and weaponry appear later in the series, the only armor set found in Diablo 2 linked to Griswold is my favourite clue that perhaps Griswold had his own final, holy retribution against the Primes, even after death. The armor set is called Griswold's Legacy, and it should be noted the set is designed for the Paladin specifically. However, any class can wear the items in the set except for Griswold's Honor, a shield which only the Paladin can don to complete the set. It should also be noted the set imparts its own unique and purely aesthetic aura. Now, I like to believe this was what the Paladin had donned when the party had felled Andariel and then the three, as Diablo himself once again saw Griswold's handiwork as a holy paladin bathed in a resplendent aura bashed his brains in.
Pepin is Tristram's resident medicine man. When first approached, we find the healer out front of his small abode, just west of the well inside the town square. Clearly used to outsiders seeking him out for his healing abilities, when first spoken to, he greets.
What ails you, my friend?
Looking closer at the man, we see he's garbed in a simple white tunic, perhaps not the best colour for the injuries he tends, and he sports a small satchel over his chest to ply his trade. His home is well lit in the background, working tirelessly by candlelight to tend to the wounded. No doubt as he is called upon all hours during Tristram's unending occupation from the forces of hell. What makes Pepin's main function in-game invaluable is that he buys and sells healing potions and elixirs, while simultaneously healing weary adventurers' wounds free of charge should you be injured. Which is just a question of when versus if. Pepin also keenly divines certain aspects about Hell's occupation of the nearby cathedral, imparting wisdom when he can, such as on the demons you battle.
I have made a very interesting discovery. Unlike us, the creatures in the labyrinth can heal themselves without the aid of potions or magic. If you hurt one of the monsters, make sure it is dead, or it very well may regenerate itself.
Which is invaluable itself, warning players to not dally or juggle Hell's forces willy-nilly and get to chopping. And 2, the prize found in the tomes contained therein.
Before it was taken over by, well, whatever lurks below, the cathedral was a place of great learning. There are many books to be found there. If you find any, you should read them all, for some may hold secrets to the workings of the labyrinth.
This in and of itself tells us a great deal about the man, his abilities and insight. However, we can only get a true perspective on the healer when speaking to his fellow townsfolk, as we learn Pepin really is the heart or lifeblood of the town literally and figuratively, despite some of the villagers' misgivings which we shall soon also explore. First, the town amputee Wirt is as good a place to start as any, as it was Pepin who was responsible for keeping the poor boy alive thanks to his brush with the demon called the Butcher and the damage wrought by his deceased cleaver.
As long as you don't need anything reattached, old Pepin is as good as they come. If I'd have had some of those potions he brews, I might still have my leg.
The mere mention of the butcher has Pepin rightly warned.
By the light, I know of this vile demon. There were many that bore the scars of his wrath upon their bodies when the few survivors of the charge led by Lazarus crawled from the cathedral. I don't know what he used to slice open his victims, but it could not have been of this world. It left wounds festering with disease, and even I found them almost impossible to treat. Beware if you plan to battle this fiend.
Pepin will then recall the horror of treating Wirt's wounds.
Poor Wirt. I did all that was possible for the child, but I know he despises that wooden peg that I was forced to attach to his leg. His wounds were hideous. No one, and especially such a young child, should have to suffer the way he did.
But suffer they did. Griswald, the local blacksmith, has a limp thanks to his encounter with the butcher and praises Pepin for his aid.
A good man who puts the needs of others above his own. You won't find anyone left in Tristram, or anyone else for that matter, who has a bad thing to say about the healer.
Pepin likewise praises Griswald and his martial counterpart supplying weapons of war.
Griswald knows as much about the art of war as I do about the art of healing. He is a shrewd merchant, but his work is second to none. Oh, I suppose that may be because he's the only blacksmith left here.
Unfortunately, some villagers were beyond Pepin's healing ability, as he will comment on the state of Farnham the Drunk, who was also injured during his encounter with the butcher.
Even my skills have been unable to fully heal Farnham. Oh, I have been able to mend his body, but his mind and spirit are beyond anything I can do.
Farnham just proves his mind is a little far gone.
I like Pepin. He really tries, you know. Listen here, you should make sure you get to know him. Good fellow like that with people always wanting help. Hey, I guess that'd be kind of like you, hero?
I was a hero too, you know. Back when
Funnily enough, when speaking of Tristram's fallen king, Leoric, Pepin similarly comments on his lack of skill on healing broken minds specifically that are tainted or touched by evil and madness.
The loss of his son was too much for King Leoric. I did what I could to ease his madness, but in the end, it overcame him. A black curse has hung over this kingdom from that day forward. But perhaps, if you were to free his spirit from his earthly prison, the curse would be lifted.
Before we scrutinize why some may say Pepin is cursed, the final two villagers who praise the healer for his abilities are Jillian.
Pepin saved my grandmother's life, and I know that I can never repay him for that. His ability to heal any sickness is more powerful than the mightiest sword and more mysterious than any spell you can name. If you ever are in need of healing, Pepin can help you.
Further establishing Pepin's inability to deal with maladies of the mind.
Ogden's barmaid is a sweet girl. Her grandmother is quite ill and suffers from delusions. She claims that they are visions, but I have no proof of that one way or the other.
And the most wholesome of bromances, Cain and Pepin glazing each other.
Ah, Pepin. I count him as a true friend, perhaps the closest I have here. He is a bit addled at times, but never a more caring or considerate soul has existed. His knowledge and skills are equaled by few, and his door is always open.
Cain is a true friend and a wise sage. He maintains a vast library and has an innate ability to discern the true nature of many things. If you ever have any questions, he is the person to go to.
So Pepin is a healer responsible for barely holding the village together, despite Tristram being consistently ravaged by hell's demons. His only flaw is his inability to understand the mind, and perhaps the depths of darkness. Curiously, Ogden questions Pepin and whether he is a cure or cause of such woes.
Pepin is a good man, and certainly the most generous in the village. He's always attending to the needs of others, but trouble of some sort or another does seem to follow him wherever he goes.
This statement is perhaps pivotal in understanding what happens to Pepin later, as ostensibly a healer is always followed by trouble, or preceded by it rather, though Pepin, clearly oblivious of Ogden's barb, pragmatically states of the innkeeper.
I really don't understand why Ogden stays here in Tristram. He suffers from a slight nervous condition, but he is an intelligent and industrious man who would do very well wherever he went. I suppose it may be the fear of the many murders that happen in the surrounding countryside, or perhaps the wishes of his wife that keep him and his family where they are.
So in essence, Pepin saves countless lives, unless minds are affected by demons. And funnily enough, or rather fittingly, Pepin's 2 quests revolve around healing. The first is clearing the brackish well in the centre of town, water being its lifeblood of course. A thorn in the side of Diablo trying to starve out the town perhaps.
What's that you say? The mere presence of the demons has caused the water to become tainted? Oh, truly a great evil lurks beneath our town, but your perseverance and courage gives us hope. Please, take this ring. Perhaps it will aid you in the destruction of such vile creatures.
The second, more personal to Pepin, as he can make an elixir to aid the player at the behest of Adria the Witch.
The witch told me that you were searching for the brain of a demon to assist me in creating my elixir. It should be of great value to the many who were injured by those foul beasts if I can just unlock the secrets I suspect that its alchemy holds. If you can remove the brain of a demon when you kill it, I would be grateful if you could bring it to me.
You can see why Pepin wishes to meddle with the minds of demons to create cures, especially if he himself cannot cure the men of the town of their madness thanks to said demons. Completing the quest, Pepin conjures a potent elixir that imparts +3 to all attributes for the hero, a powerful boon to be sure, and perhaps his work had not gone unnoticed by the forces of hell. A fact Adria the Witch has foreseen.
The hand, the heart, and the mind can perform miracles when they are in perfect harmony. The healer Pepin sees into the body in a way that even I cannot. His ability to restore the sick and injured is magnified by his understanding of the creation of elixirs and potions. He is as great an ally as you have in Tristram.
Funnily enough, Pepin perhaps has enough foresight to wonder what was happening in that hut of hers as he wonders.
While I use some limited forms of magic to create the potions and elixirs I store here, Adria is a true sorceress. She never seems to sleep, and she always has access to many mystic tomes and artifacts. I believe her hut may be much more than the hovel it appears to be, but I can never seem to get inside the place.
I love that although the events of Diablo 3 are not yet written, we find that Adria's hovel is rather spacious thanks to the sizable basement, and Pepin was right to question her, for more reasons than one. Learning all we can about Pepin in Diablo 1 brings us to his eventual fate. As we know, eventually Diablo was slain by the warrior, and the very same hero took the Soul Stone upon himself, not a small burden to be sure, and with matters of the mind beyond Pepin. As Cain states of the warrior,
It would appear that our greatest fears have come to pass. Diablo, the Lord of Terror, has once again been set loose upon the world. As you know, some time ago Diablo was slain beneath Tristram, and when our hero emerged triumphant from the labyrinth beneath town, we held a grand celebration that lasted several days. Yet, as the weeks passed, our hero became increasingly aloof. He kept his distance from the rest of the townsfolk and seemed to lapse into a dark, brooding depression. I thought that perhaps his ordeal had been so disturbing that he simply could not put it out of his mind. The hero seemed more tormented every passing day. I remember he awoke many times, screaming in the night, always something about the East. One day he simply left, and shortly thereafter Tristram was attacked by legions of foul demons. Many were slain, and the demons left me to die in that cursed cage. I believe now that Tristram's hero was that dark wanderer who passed this way before the monastery fell. I fear even worse, my friend. I fear that Diablo has taken possession of the hero who sought to slay him. If true, Diablo will become more powerful than ever before. You must stop him, or all will be lost.
No doubt, when the troubled hero returned, Pepin was one of many to attempt to aid the brooding warrior and the damage Diablo had wrought. Though we'd seen if Pepin cannot heal the late King Leoric of his madness, or even Jillian's grandma, what chance did he have against a man who was wrestling with a prime evil? Which brings us to, what of Pepin's ultimate fate then? As nothing is officially written. Well, we know sometime after the celebration the warrior left and the village was consumed. Pepin, who lacked practical combat abilities, would have been no match for the evil that overwhelmed the town. Although it's not outright stated what happened. In Diablo 2, when the player travels to Tristram, there's a corpse at the exact spot where Pepin once stood. This may be a sad, subtle confirmation that Pepin has fallen prey to the siege of Tristram by Diablo's demons. Unable to heal the one mind that would have saved the town, the same mind of the warrior, now under the control of Diablo. The greater evil who no doubt would want revenge on Pepin for thwarting the violence he had sought to sow on the townsfolk unabated. Poor Pepin, always able to heal the bodies of so many, but not his own, proving once more no good deed goes unpunished.
Though I know the way, I know not what perils will arise to hinder my journey. And as I pass through the first gate, I know that the better part of my soul will remain behind. Forever.
This is the tragic fall of Adria, the witch. Adria the Witch can be found on the outskirts of Tristram's town square in a small, cobbled-together shack just over the forked stream. Approaching her, we see an unnaturally pale woman, so pale it looks like she's never seen the sun. She has long jet black hair contrasted with a white streak through it, and she wears a black dress with a blue belt, looking like an archetypical witch if you've ever seen one. When greeted, she cryptically muses,
"I sense a soul in search of answers."
Adria's role in-game is to sell potions, scrolls, books, staves, and elixirs to the hero, and of course is invaluable to spellcasters.
I have the ability to restore their power, but know that nothing is done without a price.
But what is a witch doing during a demon's occupation? Simply collecting demon pieces for potions? Actually, yes, but that's not what she's doing right now.
Why have you brought that here? I have no need for a demon's brain at this time.
To better understand Adria and her role in Tristram before her eventual fate, we need to turn to her fellow townsfolk and Adria herself. Adria offers insight as we descend into the labyrinth. At first glance, her words suggest alignment with the town, such as when speaking of the cursed knight Lochdannen, she says,
"You may meet people who are trapped within the labyrinth, such as Lochdannen. I sense in him honor and great guilt. Aid him, and you aid all of Tristram."
This is a clear endorsement of helping the suffering and, by extension, the town itself. Yet when speaking of the Archbishop Lazarus, her tone shifts.
I did not know this Lazarus of whom you speak, but I do sense a great conflict within his being. He poses a great danger and will stop at nothing to serve the powers of darkness which have claimed him as theirs.
There's caution here, insight, a recognition of corruption without hesitation, and then the butcher.
Butcher is a sadistic creature that delights in the torture and pain of others. You have seen his handiwork in the drunkard Farnham. His destruction will do much to ensure the safety of this village.
The words are practical, but the tone carries something else. Not approval, of course, but something almost gleeful. So the question forms naturally, is Adria here to help the town or simply observe for whatever purpose? To answer that, we turn to the people of Tristram. Though the townsfolk don't speak with one voice, they're split on the witch. Those who accept her and those who don't trust her. To find out who sits in which camp, we begin with Wirt, the peg-legged boy who's already suffered at the hands of demons. Though it's not demons that unsettle him most, it's Adria.
Adria truly bothers me. Sure, Cain is creepy in what he can tell you about the past, but that witch can see into your past. She always has some way to get whatever she needs, too. Adria gets her hands on more merchandise than I've seen pass through the gates of the King's Bazaar during High Festival.
A fair question. How does she maintain supply in a town under siege?
There is much about the future we cannot see, but when it comes, it will be the children who wield it. The boy Wirt has a blackness upon his soul, but he poses no threat to the town or its people. His secretive dealings with the urchins and unspoken guilds of nearby towns gain him access to many devices that cannot be easily found in Tristram. While his methods may be reproachful, Wirt can provide assistance for your battle against the encroaching darkness.
Adria, however, sees something else in Wirt. She doesn't judge him, instead she understands. Adria even extends that respect to the blacksmith.
To a man who only knows iron, there is no greater magic than steel. The blacksmith Griswald is more of a sorcerer than he knows. His ability to meld fire and metal is unequaled in this land.
However, Griswold remains unsure.
Well, I have to practically smuggle in the metals and tools I need from caravans that skirt the edges of our damned town. That witch Adria always seems to get whatever she needs. If I knew even the smallest bit about how to harness magic as she did, I could make some truly incredible things.
Again, the same thread. She has access when no one else does. But why? And then there's Farnham.
Why don't that old crone do something for a change? Sure, she's got stuff. If you listen to me, she's unnatural. I ain't never seen her eat or drink, and you can't trust somebody who doesn't drink at least a little.
He's crude, dismissive, but buried in it is an astute observation. Though Adria herself responds with clarity.
The higher you place your faith in one man, the farther it has to fall. Farnham has lost his soul, but not to any demon. It was lost when he saw his fellow townspeople betrayed by the Archbishop Lazarus. He has knowledge to be gleaned, but you must separate fact from fantasy.
Again, she sees through his facade. He's not a fool, but someone broken. Adria, despite her isolation, also intimately understands the roles of the townsfolk, such as Ogden, the innkeeper.
Earthen walls and thatched canopy do not a home create. The innkeeper Ogden serves more of a purpose in this town than many understand. He provides shelter for Jillian and her matriarch, maintains what life Farnham has left to him, and provides an anchor for all who are left in the town to what Tristram once was. His tavern and the simple pleasures that can still be found there provide a glimpse of a life that the people here remember. It is that memory that continues to feed their hopes for your success.
She sees structure, stability, and care. Ogden also admits.
Adria is wise beyond her years, but I must admit, she frightens me a little. Well, no matter. If you ever have need to trade in items of sorcery, she maintains a strangely well-stocked hut just across the river.
It's not hatred for the innkeeper, but instead unease. That unease becomes clearer with his barmaid Jillian.
The woman at the edge of town is a witch. She seems nice enough, and her name, Adria, is very pleasing to the ear, but I'm very afraid of her. It would take someone quite brave like you to see what she is doing out there.
Some would call it fear without cause, or perhaps without understanding. Adria then answers.
Corruption has the strength of deceit, but innocence holds the power of purity. The young woman Jillian has a pure heart, placing the needs of her matriarch over her own. She fears me, but it is only because she does not understand me.
And she's not defensive, instead just aware. So it seems that there's a maturity to Adria, and those that have seen more of the world perhaps also hold a similar perspective, as Pepin offers perhaps the most grounded view.
While I use some limited forms of magic to create the potions and elixirs I store here, Adria is a true sorceress. She never seems to sleep, and she always has access to many mystic tomes and artifacts. I believe her hut may be much more than the hovel it appears to be, but I can never seem to get inside the place.
Not an accusation or slight like others, but instead an observation. Adria in turn says,
The hand, the heart, and the mind can perform miracles when they are in perfect harmony. The healer Pepin sees into the body in a way that even I cannot. His ability to restore the sick and injured is magnified by his understanding of the creation of elixirs and potions. He is as great an ally as you have in Tristram.
Again, there is measured respect. And finally, there's Decard Cain, the village elder, who is perhaps the wisest man in town, and he muses.
The witch, Adria, is an anomaly here in Tristram. She arrived shortly after the cathedral was desecrated, while most everyone else was fleeing. She had a small hut constructed at the edge of town, seemingly overnight, and has access to many strange and arcane artifacts and tomes of knowledge that even I have never seen before.
Again, Cain doesn't give judgment, instead using just fact. Even Adria seems to see more in Cain than he sees of himself.
A chest opened in darkness holds no greater treasure than when it is opened in the light. The storyteller Cain is an enigma, but only to those who do not look. His knowledge of what lies beneath the cathedral is far greater than even he allows himself to realize.
Adria is not rejected by Tristram, but she's never fully accepted either. She helps and understands, provides, and yet behind that, you can tell that she's watching and observing. So then the question remains, was Adria simply a merchant of the occult, a quiet ally in a dying town, or something else entirely? Tristram was never meant to survive, and neither was the mystery of the witch. Because, as fans know, at the culmination of Diablo 1, Tristram falls. Although the warrior returns changed, soon the town is consumed and its people are either scattered, killed, or worse. So what becomes of Adria? Does she stay and fight? Does she flee like the others? Or was she already gone before the end? Because when we arrive in Diablo 2, Adria is nowhere to be found. There is no body, no grave, not even a trace of her ramshackle hut that supposedly was put up overnight and disappeared just as quickly. Although Adria the Witch never appears in Diablo 2, her hut notably absent from the ruined remains of Tristram, and no body found among the dead. Her fate is not entirely unknown. In Diablo 3, we can return to Old Tristram and uncover what became of her through a diary entry hidden beneath her former hut in the cellar below. So it looks like Pepin was right about her hut. This entry was written after the warrior's return following the defeat of Diablo and recounts the early stages of what would become known as the Darkening of Tristram.
Aiden came to me last night. I suspected what was lurking within his troubled heart. I consoled him as best I could. Regardless, wherever he's headed, hell will surely follow in his wake. The shadows close in on Tristram once again, but like Aiden, I'll be gone before they fall.
So Adria, with her ties to the occult, knew the warrior Aiden was tainted by the prime evil and chose to flee rather than warn the townsfolk who had once welcomed her? The very same people she aided during Tristram's darkest hours. But why? For some, this moment represents a controversial shift in her character, as in Diablo 3, not only her role but her appearance, voice, and even age seem altered. Though, to be fair, someone steeped in the dark arts and learning of her full story, such changes are not necessarily inconsistent. But this raises a more important question. Was this truly a change in Adria, or simply a reveal of who she'd always been? To answer that, we follow her story beyond Tristram. In Diablo 3, we learn that our young ally Leah is the daughter of Adria, despite the two having never met. This is shown when we're tasked with rescuing the witch from Belial's Imperial Guard in the wretched pit beneath Caldeum.
I found my mother Adria. She's alive, but the Imperial Guard is holding her somewhere down here.
We will find her.
When we find her, she's being tortured by demons over a dark artifact.
Tell us about the Black Soul Stone! We know of the 3 that the Horadrim used to trap the primevals. What is the purpose of this one?
Your master Belial has good reason to fear it.
Leave her alone!
With Adria freed from Belial's forces, we witness a reunion between mother and daughter.
My daughter.
You know who I am?
My darling, I've watched over you all your life, but I never dared get close because of the danger that always shadows me.
It is not safe here. Let's move.
But this raises an immediate question. Why would the aging witch bear a child? I mean, how's that possible? Only to abandon her. Upon returning Adria to safety, she explains.
I'm surprised Cain never told you why I left. He knew I was called to fight the Lords of Hell, and I knew he would keep you safe.
He's gone now.
Then it's fate that we have been reunited. Cain's work, your work, is my war.
According to the Horadric texts, only 2 evils remain. Belial is here in Caldeum, and Azmodan has yet to reveal himself.
Do you regret abandoning Leah?
What? No, I never saw it that way. She grew up in safety, while I risked my life to find the key to our salvation. It was the sacrifice that I had to make. In any case, Leah will meet her full potential under my guidance. Do you not have things to do?
How well did you know Cain?
For a time, during the darkening of Tristram, we spent many nights in the Tavern of the Rising Sun, discussing his Horadric texts and the varied arcana I'd collected during my travels.
Did you ever see him again?
Only from afar. From time to time, our paths would cross, and I would catch glimpses of Leah as she grew. It broke my heart that I could not reveal myself and raise her as my own.
How did you come to be captured?
I was trying to steal out of the city. I'd returned to gather some things before setting out to recover Zoltankul's head, and the guards found me.
Adria then claimed she hid Leah away for protection, while she herself continued to battle the greater evils, pursued for her knowledge of this black soul stone. Unlike earlier soul stones, this artifact apparently can contain both lesser and prime evils alike, making it one of, if not the most dangerous object in existence. It is only after the defeat of Belial and Azmodan that we witness its true purpose. Returning in Act 3, we find Adria with the Black Soul Stone in the midst of a dark ritual.
Adria, when did you decide to betray us?
20 years ago, a great and terrible power drew me to Tristram. But Aiden, Leoric's eldest son, defeated that power and sought to contain it within his own flesh.
The Dark Wanderer.
It was Diablo I saw within him, and I pledged myself to his service. Now, at last, his grand design comes to fruition. Dear Leah, Decard always suspected your true father was Diablo himself. And now, my daughter, you shall serve as his vessel.
I live. But I am more than I once was. The 7 evils are now one within me. I am the prime evil. Well done, faithful Adria. Go now, until I call upon you again.
Using her own daughter as its final component, by Act 4, the truth is undeniable. Diablo, now empowered by the souls of his brethren within the Black Soul Stone, is reborn as the prime evil through Leah. Her mortal form is consumed and discarded as her mother's plans reaches its conclusion, which then brings us to the real questions. When did Adria turn? Was she ever truly aiding Tristram or simply playing her part? And was she acting of her own will or, like Lazarus, simply a puppet due to Diablo's terror? And how did she know how to use the forbidden powers of the Black Soul Stone, an artifact capable of binding all evils? And more importantly, why would any sane person seek the power to destroy all existence? And finally, what becomes of Adria after Diablo 3? To answer these questions, we must go back to the moment the warrior carrying Diablo within him came to Adria's door after felling the Lord of Terror in Diablo 1. As Adria explained,
First time I heard him, his voice pierced my skull. It reminded me of the cold and haughty sound of my father, but it was more, a crush of thousands of voices. When I heard him, I saw the flame, and I knew fear. It was a man who came to my bed that night, but when I looked into his eyes, I saw the other, though even he did not know at the time. I did not hear the man's voice, no. I heard the other, the one that has been with me for all these years. I gave myself to him.
He was losing.
obviously this is a jarring assertion. That daughters are cheap and that Adria knowingly gave herself to Diablo, knew him in the biblical sense, if you will. So what could have driven her to such a point? We know babies are not born evil, so what in her past corrupted Adria? To answer that, we need to dig deeper into her journals in Reaper of Souls, where she reflects on her early life and strange relationship with fear.
The first time I saw a witch, she burned. Father took me to the town square to see it. Look, he said, that is the face of evil. But she looked like any other woman, and burned like anything else. Then the flames engulfed her. Her eyes found mine, and she laughed. My father could never understand. He was born into privilege and wealth, and he spent every moment of his life trying to protect it. I was his flesh and blood, but he cared more about the names in books and the faces of the paintings on the walls than his living daughter. Do you know what fear is? The fear of who you are. The fear of what your own blood would do if they knew what you were. No, you could never understand it. People look to you as a savior. Have you ever thought about the lives you've taken? They were fathers, lovers, daughters. He asked me what I see when I look into the fire. I see a burning man. I see a burning witch. I see terror and a hunger that will consume everything. What hope do the works of men have against such all-consuming hunger? I gave myself to the flames. My father burned. He screamed as the flames consumed him, and the smell was sickly sweet. He had found me. For once in his life he had noticed me, and when he saw that the flames did not touch me, he breathed one word. It was his last. Witch, they called me. But I turned it against them. When their daughter had a child that needed to disappear, when there was a sickness that none of the healers could cure, who was it they pleaded with? When they needed me, the morality they flaunted in the daylight disappeared, as it always does. Leah was never my daughter. She was Diablo's daughter, in truth. I felt blessed to have given the product of my body to my master. He had no interest in me, but in the product of my womb he found life again. I never flinched when I knew her purpose. Daughters are a cheap thing.
So, Adria's path was not sudden. It was shaped over years. Fear, isolation, and rejection didn't break her. They pushed her towards power. But how did she move from mere outcast to a servant of Diablo? According to the Book of Tyrael, Adria joined a hidden coven in Westmarch soon after, rising alongside another witch, Magda. Together they poisoned its leaders and seized control, reshaping it into a brutal order devoted to demonic power. But Adria was never loyal to the coven, only to power itself. And when Diablo called her to Tristram, she left. Though originally it was stated in Diablo the Awakening that with the appearance of the Hellmouth at Tristram, Adria saw an opportunity to both strike a blow against the legions of Hell and make profit in gold and magical artifacts in the process. Perhaps some of that's the truth, or perhaps that's something she told others to hide her true intent. As it's later revealed, Aiden had plunged Diablo's soulstone into his forehead in an attempt to contain his essence, and Adria had seen it within him. When he spoke, she said she did not hear a man, she heard thousands of voices and saw the flames of her own past. Adria knew fear. She believed that Diablo had come to her as a safeguard against failure, and unlike Aiden and his other minions, she hadn't been corrupted against her will, but given a choice. As Diablo spoke of the end of days, declaring Adria worthy to serve in his victory. He gave her visions of decay and corruption, visions she came to see not as horror, but as inevitability, the natural end of humanity, burning in a fire. Perhaps this was the moment that everything aligned. The fire she saw as a child, the fear she embraced, the path that she'd always been on. Begging the question, were witches in Sanctuary always being marked by the Lord of Terror himself? Whatever the truth, Adria did not resist. She pledged herself to Diablo, and she would give him her blood and soul, and in return he would give her the power and destiny she believed was hers. She marked his soul as he caressed her, beginning a plan that would take over 20 years. Adria and Aiden spent many nights together, and through this union, she became pregnant with Leah. But one step remained. The other great evils had to be contained. How? Well, at Diablo's command and according to the Book of Adria, Adria gathered the power to bind his brethren within the Black Soulstone. When all were captured, save Diablo himself, the final step was what we witnessed at the end of Act 3 in Diablo 3. And yet, once it was complete, Adria was simply told to leave, and she vanished. So what happened to the witch? We finally learn of Adria's fate in Act 5, Reaper of Souls, where we learn that Adria had entered the Blood Marsh not long after the events at Bastion's Keep. She knew Diablo had fallen and that the Black Soulstone was now in the hands of Malthael. Yet she remained certain the Lord of Terror would return and sought to reclaim the stone. Driven by vengeance for the betrayal at Bastion's Keep, which cost Leah her life and unleashed the prime evil upon heaven, the heroes pursued the witch into the marsh. There they battled creatures twisted by Adria's newly found blood magic. The heroes finally cornered her within the Great Hall. Upon seeing the heroes, she declared,
Adria.
The angels will never suffer us to live. They cannot accept the fact that we may choose our own path. At least demons are not so rigid in their beliefs.
With a sudden shriek, Adria's magic engulfs her form, tossing her body into the bloody pool behind her. blood and bone are bound into a new sinew-laden demonic form as she emerges from the pool barely recognizable, save that unmistakable and wicked laugh. The little girl that watched the witch burn is no more.
We will choose our own destiny, but you won't be around to see that.
During the battle, Adria reveals that Diablo had shown her a vision of his return, one where the Nephilim themselves would release him. The heroes would then strike her down, avenging both her betrayal and the death of Leah.
Diablo will return. I have done what I can to ensure it. He always finds a way. In your heart of hearts, you know this.
Yet, of course, as we know, the vision comes to pass. All evils were later freed after the death of Malthael. After Adria's death, her skull was taken by an unknown party and displayed in a macabre fashion, seen on the cover of the Book of Adria, which finally begs the question. Blizzard placed Adria at the center of Diablo 3's story, her actions shaping the rise of the primeval itself. But was this a satisfying end? Was she pulled from the shadows of Tristram and forced into a larger role, reshaped and rewritten, her new form masking something that never quite fit? Or was this a story of grim inevitability in Sanctuary, where even at birth, lives are claimed by the designs of Diablo? Because if that's true, then Adria was never in control. Like Lazarus, she was simply another vessel for Diablo's will. Or was it choice, a path she willingly embraced, one born not of control but of belief? What we do know is, like the Wanderer, Adria's destiny was guided by the Lord of Terror's machinations, a dark path that would begin and end with blood and fire. Fans of the Diablo series are intimately familiar with the character Decard Cain. However, what the games never show is certain critical events during Cain's life post Diablo 1 and his growing bond with a prime evil, perhaps proving that no good deed goes unpunished. To explore this full story, here is the tragic fall of Decard Cain the Elder. Cain, known as the town elder in Diablo 1, is first found loitering by the well in the town centre. Approaching him, we see he has tanned skin, is balding on top, and sports a short white beard garbed in a simple blue tunic. When greeted, he's eager to share his wisdom, saying perhaps one of the most iconic lines in all of Diablo/gaming in his trademark Connery-esque accent.
Hello, my friend. Stay a while and listen.
To learn more about Cain and his role in Tristram before his eventual fate, we should speak to his fellow townsfolk and Cain himself. Early on, he will guide you to speak to him and use his knowledge to find answers about quests.
I know of many myths and legends that may contain answers to questions that may arise in your journeys into the labyrinth. If you come across challenges and questions to which you seek knowledge, seek me out, and I will tell you what I can.
Or tell you the value of finding tomes beyond what he can impart.
While you are venturing deeper into the labyrinth, you may find tomes of great knowledge hidden there. Read them carefully, for they can tell you things that even I cannot.
In fact, it's easy to argue Cain is the most invaluable source of knowledge in the game, as any good town elder should be, as he imparts invaluable context on what has transpired to curse the town of Tristram when asking about several quests and events, such as the fate of the now undead Skeleton King.
Ah, the story of our king, is it? The tragic fall of Leoric was a harsh blow to this land. The people always loved the king, and now they live in mortal fear of him. The question that I keep asking myself is how he could have fallen so far from the light, as Leoric had always been the holiest of men. Only the vilest powers of hell could so utterly destroy a man from within.
And Lazarus's betrayal and the butcher's subsequent massacre of the bulk of the townsfolk.
It seems that the Archbishop Lazarus goaded many of the townsmen into venturing into the labyrinth to find the king's missing son. He played upon their fears and whipped them into a frenzied mob. None of them were prepared for what lay within the cold earth. Lazarus abandoned them down there, left in the clutches of unspeakable horrors, to die. I see that this strange behavior puzzles you as well. I would surmise that since many demons fear the light of the sun and believe that it holds great power, it may be that the rising sun depicted on the sign you speak of has led them to believe that it too holds some arcane powers. Perhaps they are not all as smart as we had feared.
Unfortunately, Cain may be right about lesser demons, but not the schemes of the primes, a mistake that will cost him dearly. However, for now, let's speak to the other townsfolk to see what they think of Cain's wisdom. The town generally falls into two camps, those that take Cain at face value as a storyteller, and those who see more than meets the eye. Starting with the former, Cain's friend Pepin the healer imparts.
Cain is a true friend and a wise sage. He maintains a vast library and has an innate ability to discern the true nature of many things. If you ever have any questions, he is the person to go to.
Likewise, Cain will share.
Pepin. I count him as a true friend, perhaps the closest I have here. He is a bit addled at times, but never a more caring or considerate soul has existed. His knowledge and skills are equaled by few, and his door is always open.
Ogden the innkeeper will guide.
If you want to know more about the history of our village, the storyteller Cain knows quite a bit about the past.
Cain, however, shares a much more personal profile of his fellow townsfolk.
Ogden has owned and run the Rising Sun Inn and Tavern for almost 4 years now. He purchased it just a few short months before everything here went to hell. He and his wife, Garda, do not have the money to leave as they invested all they had in making a life for themselves here. He is a good man with a deep sense of responsibility.
Jillian the barmaid will say,
Cain has been the storyteller of Tristram for as long as I can remember. He knows so much and can tell you just about anything. About almost everything.
And Cain will elucidate.
Jillian is a fine woman, much adored for her high spirits and her quick laugh. She holds a special place in my heart. She stays on at the tavern to support her elderly grandmother who is too sick to travel. I sometimes fear for her safety, but I know that any man in the village would rather die than see her harmed.
Unfortunately, Cain's care for Jillian may come back to bite him later. For now, we shall speak to other more aware residents, as Griswald confides.
Sometimes I think that Cain talks too much, but I guess that's his calling in life. If I could bend steel as well as he can bend your ear, I could make a suit of court plate good enough for an emperor.
Cain shares a different side of the blacksmith.
Griswald, a man of great action and great courage. I bet he never told you about the time he went into the labyrinth to save Wirt, did he? He knows his fair share of the dangers to be found there. But then again, so do you. He is a skilled craftsman, and if he claims to be able to help you in any way, you can count on his honesty and his skill.
But why did Griswold brave the labyrinth for the curt child? Well, Cain will never shy away from a good story recounting.
The story of Wirt is a frightening and tragic one. He was taken from the arms of his mother and dragged into the labyrinth by the small, foul demons that wield wicked spears. There were many other children taken that day, including the son of King Leoric. The knights of the palace went below, but never returned. The blacksmith found the boy, but only after the foul beasts had begun to torture him for their sadistic pleasures.
Wirt, conversely, is not quite a believer in Cain's musings.
Cain knows too much. He scares the life out of me, even more than that woman across the river. He keeps telling me about how lucky I am to be alive and how my story is foretold in legend. I think he's off his crock.
Speaking of Adria, the witch cryptically muses.
A chest opened in darkness holds no greater treasure than when it is opened in the light. The storyteller Cain is an enigma, but only to those who do not look. His knowledge of what lies beneath the cathedral is far greater than even he allows himself to realize.
Cain's knowledge is greater than he realizes? The statement becomes apparent later. In line with his apparent insight, though, Cain says of the witch,
The witch, Adria, is an anomaly here in Tristram. She arrived shortly after the cathedral was desecrated, while most everyone else was fleeing. She had a small hut constructed at the edge of town, seemingly overnight, and has access to many strange and arcane artifacts and tomes of knowledge that even I have never seen before.
Speaking of homes, the perpetually outside Farnham, plopped next to his rock, is a point of contention in the town. Some cast aspersions at his drinking. Cain, however, pities the man sharing.
Poor Farnham. He is a disquieting reminder of the doomed assembly that entered into the cathedral with Lazarus on that dark day. He escaped with his life, but his courage and much of his sanity were left in some dark pit. He finds comfort only at the bottom of his tankard nowadays, but there are occasional bits of truth buried within his constant ramblings.
And truth in his ramblings there is. A prime example is Farnham's insight into Cain is more keen than many of his contemporaries.
Cain isn't what he says he is.
Sure. He talks a good story. Some of them are real scary or funny.
But I think he knows more than he knows he knows.
And it's Cain's knowledge that aids the heroes in their quest against the forces of hell's occupation of the nearby cathedral and the evil that awaits in its bowels below. At the culmination of the game, when facing the betrayer Lazarus, the revelation of what the Archbishop unleashed on the town is realized by Cain, and he also reveals his true identity.
This does not bode well, for it confirms my darkest fears. While I did not allow myself to believe the ancient legends, I cannot deny them now. Perhaps the time has come to reveal who I am. My true name is Decard Cain the Elder, and I am the last descendant of an ancient brotherhood that was dedicated to safeguarding the secrets of a timeless evil, an evil that quite obviously has now been released. The Archbishop Lazarus, once King Leoric's most trusted advisor, led a party of simple townsfolk into the labyrinth to find the king's missing son, Albrecht. Quite some time passed before they returned, and only a few of them escaped with their lives. Curse me for a fool! I should have suspected his veiled treachery then. It must have been Lazarus himself who kidnapped Albrecht and has since hidden him within the labyrinth. I do not understand why the Archbishop turned to the darkness, or what his interest is in the child, unless he means to sacrifice him to his dark masters. That must be what he has planned. The survivors of his rescue party say that Lazarus was last seen running into the deepest bowels of the labyrinth. You must hurry and save the prince from the sacrificial blade of this demented fiend.
Unfortunately, we are too late to save the boy, as Lazarus had gloated.
Abandon your foolish quest. All that awaits you is the wrath of my master. You are too late to save the child. Now you will join him.
Your business ends here, betrayer.
And returning to Cain, he grimly assesses.
Your story is quite grim, my friend. Lazarus will surely burn in hell for his horrific deed. The boy that you describe is not our prince, but I believe that Albrecht may yet be in danger. The symbol of power that you speak of must be a portal in the very heart of the labyrinth. Know this, my friend. The evil that you move against is the Dark Lord of Terror. He is known to mortal men as Diablo. It was he who was imprisoned within the labyrinth many centuries ago, and I fear that he seeks to once again sow chaos in the realm of mankind. You must venture through the portal and destroy Diablo before it is too late. Our time is running short. I sense his dark power building, and only you can stop him from attaining his full might.
With a final spurring from the elder Cain, revealing he's a part of a brotherhood called the Horadrim, who dedicated themselves to battling the primes on Sanctuary with the aid of the Archangel Tyrael. As Cain reclaims his role, you're tasked with facing and felling the Lord of Terror, who had claimed the young Prince Albrecht as his host, a grisly task that the warrior is destined to undertake. With the Lord of Terror defeated, what then became of Cain? Well, the Elder proved that he who gazes long enough into the abyss, that the abyss may gaze back at you. And Hell certainly took notice of the Elder taking up the mantle of Horadrim once more. When returning to Tristram and Diablo 2, you find the town desecrated and burning. Demons swarm, and to our surprise, Cain is alive, hanging in a gibbet with a front row seat to the carnage.
Decard Cain, leave quickly.
I thank you, friend, for coming to my aid.
Perhaps as retribution from Diablo himself, a cruel and pointed payment for aiding the warrior in the greater evil's downfall. Freeing the Elder, you can meet him back at the rogue encampment as he explains of what had transpired that led to Tristram's downfall.
Regrettably, I could do nothing to prevent the disaster which devastated Tristram. It would appear that our greatest fears have come to pass. Diablo, the Lord of Terror, has once again been set loose upon the world. As you know, some time ago Diablo was slain beneath Tristram, and when our hero emerged triumphant from the labyrinth beneath town, we held a grand celebration that lasted several days. Yet, as the weeks passed, our hero became increasingly aloof. He kept his distance from the rest of the townsfolk and seemed to lapse into a dark, brooding depression. I thought that perhaps his ordeal had been so disturbing that he simply could not put it out of his mind. The hero seemed more tormented every passing day. I remember he awoke many times, screaming in the night, always something about the East. One day he simply left, and shortly thereafter Tristram was attacked by legions of foul demons. Many were slain, and the demons left me to die in that cursed cage. I believe now that Tristram's hero was that dark wanderer who passed this way before the monastery fell. I fear even worse, my friend. I fear that Diablo has taken possession of the hero who sought to slay him. If true, Diablo will become more powerful than ever before. You must stop him, or all will be lost.
So, what does Sanctuary have in store for Cain next? Well, it should be noted that Decard Cain plays an integral role of companion and guide for the player in most of the Diablo game entries. As such, it would take hours to outline his entire story, as his story is inextricably linked as witness to the player's actions during each game's main narrative. And although I am open to doing something more in depth for the character at a later date, for now, seeing as these videos are aimed at characters' beginnings and downfall, we should move on to what happened after the events of Diablo 2, as Cain realized that despite the three brothers dead, for now, the end of days are coming, and evil can never truly be banished. After the events of Diablo 2, we learn in the book The Order that Cain begins searching prophecies, ancient texts, and anything that points towards what's next. And during that search, he uncovers something critical, a child in Chaldeum, Leah, the daughter of Adria, and worse, Cain suspects the truth that her father is the warrior, the man who defeated Diablo and became him, which means Leah may be the child of Diablo himself. So Cain goes to Chaldeum and finds Jillian, her ward, broken and paranoid, now afraid of the child she raised. That night, it all collapses as Jillian tries to kill Leah. Leah's dark power erupts and the house burns. Cain pulls her from the flames while Jillian is taken away, her mind finally gone. And in that moment, everything locks into place with the prophecy, bloodline, and power. This isn't coincidence. Leah is at the center of what's coming. So Cain makes the call and takes her on as his ward, not to just protect her, but to prepare her. Because if Diablo's legacy lives on anywhere, it's in her. Which brings us to the start of Diablo 3. In the initial cinematic of the game, we see Decard Cain's return to Tristram following the prophecy and studying signs of the end of days alongside Leah after the fall of the World Stone. When a star crashes into the cathedral, Cain is inside. He knows it isn't just a meteor. Something divine had fallen into the bowels of the cathedral. Enlisting the help of some heroes to fight off the demons and cultists that are attempting to find the fallen star. What they discover is no star at all, but a stranger. Cain then begins restoring the truth, helping Tyrael remember who he is and why he chose to stand with humanity. But before the restoration of his sword Eldruin is complete, which will give Tyrael his memories back, the Coven arrives, led by Magda, in service of Belial, the Lord of Lies, moving to kill Tyrael before he can rise again. In that moment, Cain gets between them, not to win, but to ensure what must happen. As Magda strikes him down, Cain's sacrifice becomes the turning point. Eldruin is remade and justice returns.
It's your choice, Cain. Either use your Horadric arts to repair the sword, or your dear Leah dies a horrible death.
All this pain, this destruction. What is the sword to you?
To me, nothing. To my master, Belial, everything. Your rage is overwhelming, girl. You win this round, but if the sword cannot be mine, I'll claim the one it's bound to. In the end, the blade shall be mine.
Uncle, you can't die.
Nothing can stop that now. But there is one last thing I must do. The sword must be made whole. Just as I suspected, the sword is of the high heavens. The stranger is an angel. Heed the journal. The truth lies within.
Uncle Decard! I never believed all your crazy tales, your work. You never finished. I will finish it, Uncle. I will carry on for you.